All right, ladies and gentlemen, fellow humans from around the world, a new episode of Disorganized Productions. And today I'm very excited with our new guest, Mr. Adrian Martinez. He was on a Flat Earth Files and he was on a Firmamental podcast already. He has some great insights, and we're going to dig into some crazy topics, as you know that we do. So please introduce yourself, Adrian.
Yes, I'm Adrian from the Lone Star State. Currently, I was from California for 41 years of my life, and now we have a new journey here in Texas, and we're just excited for the change and for the kids to grow up and see different cultures and communities, and make just this chapter of our life. So we had a son that we were pregnant with when leaving California in 2021. Obviously, there was a lot going on back then in California, with COVID and, just how they treated the churches and things of that nature. And at the time, I was in my church for 32 years, pretty much almost 33 years. Well, basically 33 years. And I was an assistant pastor there for a long time, for about 7, 8 years. And then I was a worship leader there for a ways too, in and out, from basically '07 to helped when we left. And I was one of the main worship leaders for a while, and enjoyed my time there. I love the folks there, my pops and everybody that's there, my brother, Paul, and everyone there, David. And it was just one of those things where we had lost my sister-in-law, and we just decided to relocate, and we really prayed about it for a while. And for me, I just wanted, as a man, I was always in my pops' house. He was my senior pastor, my boss. And I think over time, I just needed to learn how to serve better and just be better as a man. And to do that, sometimes you got to leave home. There's a value in just seeing what you don't have, what you miss, and just learning how good you have it sometimes when you leave. And then also you meet new people, and you have new adventures, and you learn that there's more out there, and there's more wisdom and understanding. And the people that I've met now, and just wonderful people. Our new pastor and his family, his wife, his children, they're great people. And one of the brothers I connected with served in Iraq, and just a great man. And also some of the younger guys, great guys, great hospitable guys, different trades, young entrepreneurs, young guys who study the Word of God. And so it's just been a great journey. Our kids are having a great time, and they're acclimating. My wife's acclimating, and we're just excited for this journey. And along the journey, of course, in 2020, we all went down the rabbit holes. And for me, I'm always a guy to ask questions, and I'm a thinker. And at that time, I had just lost 100 pounds, and since then I've not been so disciplined. But that, like I said, that's something that's come. We're working on this year, finally getting mentally just back into it. But back then, we had just lost my mother-in-law in 2019. So losing someone like that, and then going into the pandemic, and then dealing with our sister-in-law who had stage 4 cancer. I think it was in the colon and the ovaries and all that stuff. So it had already kind of, by the time they found it, and it was already kind of, past that almost treatable stage. But even then, it's modern medicine doesn't help, when you get to that point, because they look at you as you're imminent. They look at you as like, okay, well, we're already practicing medicine, so let's practice other stuff too, and it's like, okay, well, so when we lost her early 2021, we just really prayed and said, God, we just want something different, something that can, that we're challenged, because if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. That's something that someone put into our hearts, even years before. We kind of knew that if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. I mean, that's something that you're taught as a kid. It's insanity, right? I mean, so it's not that we didn't feel that we couldn't grow where we were. We just knew that we can at times be undisciplined and just kind of be comfortable, and you take things for granted. You take your life for granted. I was very blessed. I worked at a very nice university. I had great friends. At that time, I was in my community and helping out, or hanging out with our neighbors, and obviously serving at the church full time. And during COVID, we helped our pastor shoot, like almost 90 episodes for just the weekly services, different things. And I put a lot of time into production, learning programs and editing and just doing different things. And I think that kind of got my eyes open a little bit, just because when you start getting into editing and production, you realize that anything that's on TV, man, it takes work.
Yeah.
Anything that creates a narrative, it's like, man, I had episodes where my lighting was off, where the sound wasn't good. I didn't mix the words with the actual video, where there's latency, so you get that B-rated look to the video. And
Mm.
you just learn a depth of field and bokeh effect and aperture, and you just learn a lot, when it comes to filming, lighting, and actually capturing. And at the time, we had to capture the video, and
Mhm.
we had to capture the audio. So then, like, okay, well, you're the videographer, you're the audio engineer, you're the director. so
You're
so you kind of
basically
learn.
everything.
Yeah, you learn a lot of trades, and you learn how to get around things. But for the most part, it taught me a lot on just visuals, what I'm looking at, and um so during the rewind a little bit, when I was going through my health journey, I learned that it's almost in when you're insulin resistant, when you have let's say you're a male and you have high estrogen, or you're a female, you have high estrogen. Well, the signs of high insulin are weight gain. If you're trying to bulk up, the first thing they're going to do is tell you to eat more protein,
Mhm.
create a not you don't want an anabolic, you want a you want an anabolic, you don't want a cannibalic like effect to your body. So basically, um glucagon is the cannibalic effect. Basically, glucagon's present in the body. It's going to go to your stored fat. Your body's not stupid, it stores fat, so it doesn't eat your muscle. And that's why fasting is powerful, because the body is a scavenger. It's actually going to recycle dead cells, damaged cells. It's going to recycle cysts. It'll actually create new amino acids and break them down. And the body's not dumb. We're intelligently designed. And we know that because even people who are in hospitals, if you cut them, they'll heal. Now, how long it takes for them to heal depends on their health. If their health is really bad, it may take a little longer, but it will heal. Being a diabetic, that was the first thing they taught me, was like, when you're going to get sick, you're going to be sick longer. When you get cut, it's going to take longer for those cuts to heal.
Mhm.
And those are things we got to monitor, because then you could develop gangrene and all that. But at the time, they didn't teach me that it's because overall my health was decaying. Like I said before, your foods are toxifying your body. You have inflammation everywhere. You're taking in fluid, having edema in the ankles and the heart, and that obviously causes these effects to your body, because your cholesterol, the more you eat, the more cholesterol you need to transport what you eat, nutrition and toxins. And then so naturally, if you're eating a lot, you're high cholesterol. If you're overweight, you're high cholesterol. If you're high insulin, you're storing fat. You're high estrogen, man boobs, dad bod. Those are just signs that you're storing fat and not burning fat. And those are just indicators and biomarkers. I help people a lot just learning about like their circadian rhythm, blue light filters, like what is your cells and how they communicate with light. And lighting actually, you have exposed skin. Well, your biggest organ is your skin. So when you have light hit your skin, it actually communicates to your skin on what time of day it is. And then that creates a hormonal effect and, to your pineal gland, and create melatonin. And a lot of people who struggle with sleep aren't producing melatonin. And a
Mhm.
lot of times it's just because stressors, lighting, bright screens, and all the above, high fructose corn syrup, a lot of inhibitors. And that's what I learned about health. Health is removing inhibitors on pathways in your body. So your body's constantly sending signals to do things, to heal. Like I said, if you cut your foot, your toe, your finger, well, your signaling has to happen to create platelets to stop the bleeding. your natural band-aids and all that stuff, your body's not dumb. It's not going to let you, it doesn't want you to bleed out. You're going to have swelling, you're going to have histamine. Like it's amazing how the body works. So when
It
I went
is.
down the journey of, when I went down the journey of health, I learned that there was a lot of lies and there was conspiracies in health. And I didn't know, because when I was dealing with high blood pressure and hypertension and diabetes and putting on weight and, all those things, they don't tell we're not trained in the world and the food industry and how our bodies work. So, until I start seeing things in the mid, I want to say maybe 2014, 15, 16, you would see like Farmageddon and What the Health.
Hmm.
And you would know, like, okay, well, I mean, What the Health, he went and called the American Cancer Society and go, if you got all these foods these nitrates that cause cancer, and all these foods, these carcinogens, stage 1 carcinogens that literally cause cancer, and they're on your website to eat. What do you have to say about that? And they go, click. And then they hang up on them. And the same thing with the American, I think the Diabetes Association, American Heart Association. Hey, you have these things on your website, and they cause heart disease, or they cause death and diabetes and cancer. What do you think? And, oh, let me get back to you. And they never get,
Never do,
same
never do.
story, never. So then I was like, well, what's going on? Like what is so for a couple of years, I just kind of thought about those things, and like, wow, like the food and drug industry is not telling us the truth,
Mm.
not. And then of course you learn. I think Farmageddon was really about the Monsanto, the spraying. Our foods are heavily sprayed.
GMOs.
Our GMOs, our corn. Like I try to tell people, like, corn is a fruit,
Mm.
and it only metabolized by the liver. And that's why high fructose corn syrup is extremely bad, because it's only metabolized by the liver, and it's extremely high in sugar. And that's how you develop fatty livers at a young age. Even as a skinny person, you start developing disease. And then, of course, your liver has over 500 functions. It's one of the most powerful organ in the body. It can grow. I want to say if you have a third of your liver removed, it can actually grow back to your full liver. Like, that's how powerful the liver is.
Wow.
It's your number one detoxifier. I mean, there's so much into the body that, once I started going down those rabbit holes, it was mind blowing.
Mm.
And then that led me into, like, it's 2019. I just had a daughter, and my blood pressure was like 200 over 113, I think 203 over 113 or so. And it
Wow.
was like out of control. And I was like, okay, well, I need to do something. I don't want to get on medicine and just continue the band-aid and rely on medicine. And because I had my mother and my mother-in-law at the time. My mother-in-law just passed. My mother passed 2018. And the medicines are okay. I would never come against the medicine per se.
Mhm.
It's just the mentality behind them is problematic. And what I mean by that is, like, it's like, if you have a headache, go ahead and take a Tylenol, but you shouldn't take Tylenol or Bears or Advils every day, the rest of your life. Like, you have to understand, like, sometimes you're inconvenienced by inflammation in the brain, i.e. headache. You have inflammation in the brain. It could be something you've ingested. A lot of people don't know that we're all allergic to tomato seed. So if you have anything with tomato seed, it's a lectin, and it's also, you have
Nightshade, right?
allergies. Yes, sir. Nightshades.
Mm.
Um, so you have a lot of our foods create reactions in the body. A lot of times you'll have, like, we laugh, me and my wife, about brain freezes. We're like, how do you have a brain freeze if you're drinking something, right? Like, you have an extreme response to your receptor in your brain, and it overloads.
Mhm.
And it's like,
It tells
and it's
you.
like, yes, yes. And so those kinds of things you got to look at. And if you're taking, medicine, it should be supplemental. It shouldn't be long term. You want to. So when I was taking my blood pressure pills, I was like, okay, well, I know that I've already increased them the last few years, and now they're not working.
Mhm.
Okay, so, like, if you just keep a band-aid but the same lifestyle, like I heard in your podcast, kind of, you're talking about your journey, and I forgot what episode it was, 7 or 8 or whatever. And you were kind of saying the same thing. Like, yeah, I had surgery, and then 2 years later, I guess what I had to have again because I didn't change, right? And that's kind of where I was at, same, almost same time frame. 2015, 14, I'm on high blood pressure pills in my 30s. We're talking about potential diabetic pills, pre-diabetes,
Hmm.
and you just kind of go, okay, I'll do whatever it takes, doc, and then they tell you, okay, do this, but we'll keep monitoring, and then every couple of years, it's like, okay, well, we need a little more on your blood pressure. Okay, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Until it doesn't work anymore.
No. And the thing is, what's causing the problem?
Right.
If you got a headache and I go to the doctor, I say I have a headache, I got some prescriptions, but he doesn't ask me what did you do before you got the headache.
Right.
Were you drinking like hell Saturday night? So you come in the office and you have a headache, stuff like that. And like you said, that the body is an amazing system. And with that system, when we help it with natural herbs and stuff like that, I have some great examples for that. Especially, I use Celtic sea salt. It's got 29 minerals in it. And if you're looking at cells in your own normal body, your cells need um, all these minerals. But how do you going to get them? You're going to get them through food. So, what kind of food do you take to help your immune system and your total system? Um, a few days back, I was carving my stick. I have some wood carving with some sticks that I find in the woods, and I cut it myself, and it was really deep. And what I did is I put cayenne pepper on it. I I looked at it. Barbara O'Neill on TikTok. She's this little lady with a lot of influence in the world about herbs and how we can eventually heal ourselves when we basically have the good stuff to put in and to leave some things behind, like you said, sugar and stuff like that. And if you take some oil, take the good oil like coconut oil or olive oil, but not the like refined sugar. Sugar isn't that bad. We got glucose, we got fructose when we used to eat some fruits. But if you take the refined sugar, that's a bad thing to do. And one of the things that I digged into was about cancer. Cancer feeds on sugar. So when you're putting sugar in your food, and even if you're very aware of what you're eating, there's so much sugar in our food that's processed and stuff like that you almost can do without. And that's awesome too, of course, because basically they tell you eat this and you will die or you will
Well, I
get
mean,
sick.
well, that's Rob. That's kind of where the thing happened with our sister-in-law because I'm telling her like, look, I'm learning about repair, right? Mitochondrial health. Every cell has a mitochondria, has a life force. It has a core, a source, a fuel, and that life source. If it dies out, the cell dies. The cell becomes damaged. But I told her, I said, the thing about cancer is there's what they call angiogenesis, and they're still learning about what that is. And basically, it's the bloodline to the tumor, to the source of how is the cancer feeding, right? You need
Mm-hmm.
angiogenesis for the cancer to feed. And like you said, one of the things she said was like, yeah, when they wanted to see where it was, they would just give me a bunch of sucralose, a bunch of sugar, and I would drink the sugar, and then they put me on the MRI machine, and the cancer would light up. They would see the cancer light up in the MRI machine. And I was like, well, that kind of tells you how important sugar is to the cancer and how important it is for you to stay away from it,
Mm.
especially when you're repairing still. Because ultimately, the doctor that I got certified in, his thing was, how do you get cancer? Well, you get it through radiation and chemicals. How do they treat cancer? Radiation and chemicals.
Chemicals,
So
yeah.
so typically your success rate varies because what caused the issue is how you're trying to fix the issue. And that's kind of what happened with diabetes and my journey. It's like, well, if you're diabetic and you're insulin resistant, high insulin can cause type 2, but it also can cause type 1. And unless you're genetically born with a defect for type 1, where you have low blood sugar, typically type 2, and now they call type 3 Alzheimer's, type 2 and type 3 are food based. And one of the ladies that I follow, she goes, "You're digging your grave with your fork." Okay,
Mm.
that's called when your eating habits, are extremely important, because either they damage the mitochondria or they reinforce the mitochondria. So like what you're saying is, you can eat carbohydrates, right? You can look at oatmeal, look at the nutritional value
Mm.
and essential minerals in the food you eat. And what we realized was there is none in carbs. There's no essential mineral in carbohydrates. That's what people don't realize. Now, you could argue and say, well, broccoli and vegetables have carbs, and yes, they do, but because of the fiber load, they don't count. They don't consider, because you have to learn your body, especially your gut, because a lot of people don't know, like, you can actually eat too much fiber and cause irritable bowel and cause dehydration and clog up your colon, because if your gut can't break it down, then what's going to happen now naturally, a lot of times you want the bacteria to actually eat off the vegetables and the minerals that are in your gut, so that way they help break it down. I think they cause butyrate, and butyrate helps. It's a gas that actually helps break down fat and burn fat, because fat burning is a process.
Mhm.
And it's not like, oh, I can just go into the gym and just burn fat. The body doesn't work that way. It stores it. It has to actually convert it and break it down and use it as fuel, which is where you get that butyrate from. And then then you actually lose the weight. And a lot of people don't realize you really only lose weight when you sleep. That's why they tell you, if you're not going to sleep, you're not going to lose weight if you're dealing with
Mm.
weight loss. And the same thing with healing. And that's why the body actually goes into the paralytic state, and you get most people don't realize, because they're in sleep, that their body or their body's going to go into a paralyzed state. So the pathways can open up for restoration to happen. And restoration happens to the joints, to the body, to the mitochondria. I mean, I was telling the Fermental, and I believe on the Flat Earth Files, that I had a X-ray done. This is 2019 March, and for about, I want to say 6 months. So 6 months, I had a um now that slipped my mind, but I was having arthritis, but it was kind of like I had a burning sensation from my wrist. So I was playing the keyboard for my church.
Mhm.
So this little lump here you see, so that's kind of where I have a calcium deposit. A lot of people have calcium deposits in the joints, and as you
Uh-huh.
get like diabetes and stuff, you see these deposits. And
Wow, yeah.
you play the guitar, right? So sometimes you'll see guitarists with all these calcium deposits in their joints, but they don't
Mhm.
realize that that's where repair is coming. The body uses calcium as a band-aid and for repair. So in your arteries and your organs, and so basically what it's going to do is, that's how you get a calcified organ part, where it can actually calcify up, die. You get calcium deposits in your arteries. So like when you have strokes and heart attacks, these calcium deposits break off into the arteries, and then they hit those, where when the arteries calcify, they're like the garden hose. So a garden hose,
Mhm.
when you push water in it, it expands and it contracts, right?
Yeah.
Well, when it sits in the sun and it oxidizes, it no longer expands. So when the arteries begin to become calcified from the sugar and high levels of sugar and insulin, because insulin is just as bad as glucose, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the arteries actually begin to not expand as much. When they lose their ability to expand, you create more pressure in the hose. And then when that blood pressure goes up, because again, it's the blood pressure is a need-based system. So when you go lift heavy weights, let's say you need to go lift 100 pounds, you're going to have to struggle. You're going to be like, okay. But when you're under adrenaline, it gets a lot easier, because then you get that adrenaline spike. That blood pressure is able to just, go
Mhm.
to maximum. You're able to lift this weight, and you're going at it. But the thing is, is you got to realize not having the ability to expand is where you run into that risk, you know. And as you get older, as you calcify your arteries and you begin. That's why I did a life scan so I could see, okay, how's my blood flow? Is it normal blood flow? Is it a weaker flow? And 9 months into my journey, I was 100%. Everything was great. Blood flow was great. Everything. And what happens is when that calcium deposit breaks off that arterial wall, then it gets into the blood. Then you start having these. It breaks off, goes into the brain, goes somewhere, and then you have these life events. And a lot of times they don't know that D3 and K2 takes that calcium and puts it into the joint and puts it into the bone. Right.
Wow.
So a lot of times you can actually remove it from the artery and put it into its proper place. But to do that, like you said, that's why you need healthy oils. You need avocados. You need healthy oils help lubricate the arteries
Mm.
and create a less effect where it has that, like we talked about, where it has that damage and it's no longer able to expand and it's not oxidized. So when it oxidizes up, you lose that ability, and that's where a lot of us are getting in trouble now because we're high sugar from pretty much the crib. You're high sugar from the crib. Over time, you start rotting away neurons in the brain. You start rotting away arteries, and then now you see what we're having with Alzheimer's spikes, and we're having a lot of issues with blood flow and edema and all this stuff because we just have this ongoing damage, you know, and it's
Mm.
pretty crazy. But like you said, you know, there's so many minerals. Just I use peak Himalayan salt. I'll drink that, especially when I'm on a fast, just to keep my minerals up. Maybe I'll try the other salt you're talking about just to kind of flip it up. But pink Himalayan salt, same thing. It has tons of minerals in it. Some even
Yeah.
have up to 67, 63. So we'll use that. And you know, there's grass-fed butters. I mean, there's so much nutrition just in the small things that you wouldn't think about. And then because a lot of times like, well, I'm just going to go, you know, eat a burger or something, but then you don't realize, well, that burger was fed soy. It was fattened up.
Yeah. Yeah.
They yeah. I mean, there's so many things like in our foods and our chickens and where
It's
they're doing
unbelievable.
corn.
It's
Well, we in the thing too, like I said, with their corn, them eating corn, us eating corn, and drinking corn syrup and all that. We're in a bad food wise. I remember one of the hardest things I think because when we came to Texas was like we had a lifestyle. Like I would go into a gas station and know like there's nothing I could eat there. Any nut would have canola uh, or seed oils, which are
uh-huh.
horrible, vegetable oils, which are rancid. So the difference between what you said in avocado, coconut, virgin olive oil,
Hmm.
to canola and all that other garbage vegetable is one's an omega 6 and
Hmm.
one's an omega 3. And those fatty acid profiles are actually really different. And
Oh
omega
yeah.
6 causes damage in the body, and omega 3 helps repair the body. It's an antioxidant. A lot of people don't know that. So omega 6s are horrible, and omega 3s are repair and health. So like you literally got to go into a gas station and choose like, do I want to eat garbage nuts that can cause inflammation in the body and the joints and the heart, causing the brain a headache? A lot of people, a lot of times, they don't even associate sickness and injury with their diet. Like it's like, hey man, every time I eat, I feel like crap. Well, what are you eating?
Yeah.
You know, you feel sick. It's like, what did you just eat? Like you said, you got to kind of diagnose. Like, well, what did you do? Like, what did you eat? Did you have something that was refined? Like something that has shelf life for 6 months, 2 years? Like there's foods that we eat that have shelf life for years, man. It's like, come on, man, you got to
It's
think about
not
that.
normal. It's
Yeah, well, that's like our first conspiracy is like the food industry,
oh, and that's a big
the
one.
Rockefellers.
I think Woody Harrelson made a great documentary about Feed the Soil or something like that. It's also about the food industry and about how it works, and especially in America. When you have like a few acres as a farmer and you put corn on it, you will be
Right,
subsidized, so you will get money for it, like 200, $300,000. So you make
that's
that profit
crazy.
already. But when you do that once or twice in a few years, your soul will be dust. And there's a farmer who isn't subsidized, has the same acre, but he puts some biodiversity on it. So flora and fauna, like chickens and some goats and a cow and several kinds of plants. And that land provides more money for him for all the things that he gets off from this land than the subsidized corn farmer, which has dust. Basically, in 3 to 4 years, it's completely gone. There's no natural soil that could give birth to anything, and that's crazy. The mindset of people that would say, "Okay, we make the crop corn, and we're going to get paid for that," but what are we doing with that? And the same goes with the. I want to touch base a little bit on what we talked about before about the salt. When you take a few grains of pink Himalayan salt or Celtic sea salt, your body will notice it and opens their cells. So when
Right.
you drink some water, your water will be, these are electrolytes, right? You need it for your
Yes.
body. The thing is, a lot of people working out and they say, "Oh, I'm so good because I drink like 2 liters of water a day." Okay, how much you go to the toilet when you drink these 2 liters? Well, a lot.
Right.
Yeah, because you pee it out because it's your body is not holding it, and that's one of the also the crazy thing. We don't get to school to teach about our food, what's healthy, what's not, what's a chemical reaction of your gut, for example. I was dealing with some big problems with my gut, so
Yeah.
I had to change. But like you said, the gut is like a battery. I think in Asian cultures they call it the Tao. Everything starts with the gut. If you do not take care of your gut, of your intestines, your whole system will be basically um, been shut down. So you basically destroy yourself because your gut is telling you from the beginning, I don't feel well. Well, why is that? What did you
Right.
eat or what did you didn't eat? I know this little story about this girl, 9 years old, and she had some stomach pain, right? So we went to the supermarket, and she said, "I want to have some prunes. I think it's plums. These little it's fruit. I don't plums. I
Yeah.
think yeah." So
Prunes,
she's
prunes, prunes, right?
prunes. Yeah, exactly.
There you
So
go.
she said, I want to have these prunes. So we took them home. She took some and she went directly to the toilet and she basically did her thing, right? And she didn't have any stomach pain. So our body is telling us what to eat. That's why we sometimes go to the grocery store and we end up with some spinach and some eggs, just like I didn't I didn't pick that out, but somehow my body says, "Oh, I'm interested in spinach because you need the iron and stuff like that." So yeah, yeah. Please continue about um, your food rabbit hole because I think there's a lot that we can talk about this topic alone.
Well, that's something, and it's something that, like, for me, I was a big red meat guy, and I didn't know that red meat in the stores isn't red, right?
Mm,
So basically, when the blood leaves the body, the animal, and I've seen other cultures do it because I live by, folks from like Pakistan and other areas, Libya. And so what they do is they dry their meat out anyway. They don't have the blood or anything in there. They don't really, the ones that I know, they just dry it out like literally on their porches and
yeah,
and
beef
and
jerky.
then, yeah, and then take care of business. And I'm like, okay. And then, but I've never wondered how it was red until a few years ago when I went down the rabbit holes and they were like, well, red meat is not, it's food, it's dyed red. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, it's chemically kept red. I'm like, oh, I obviously, right? Like, we all seen what people look like when the blood leaves. It turns dark. It's red, and then it turns oxidized. It oxidizes, right?
Yeah,
Oxygen hits it, and you're like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. And but why does it look so juicy and red? And then I found out, well, yeah, well, it's a chemical and it's highly toxic.
mm.
And so when you go to the healthy, just different websites or whatever, and they say that a lot of meat is treated with carbon monoxide. And
Wow.
it's like, why would you, if you know carbon monoxide, go in your garage, turn your car on, and you won't be here anymore.
Yeah.
And it's
Food
like,
poison.
what is going on? And so carbon monoxide poisoning, carbon monoxide is poisoning occurs when carbon monoxide builds up in the blood. When too much carbon monoxide is in the air, the body replaces oxygen in the red blood cells with carbon monoxide. This can lead to serious damage or even death. Carbon monoxide is a gas with no odor, taste, color, burning fuels, including gas, wood, propane, charcoal. And then it goes on to like what some of the side effects are. Here's some symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning, which is headache, weakness, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, shortness of breath, confusion, blurred vision, um, drowsiness, loss of muscle control, loss of consciousness. And the crazy part is, most people sitting in those ERs are dealing with this, and it could be red meat, could be too much red. The first thing they told me when I went on my pills and medicine was slow down your red meat. You know, it's like, okay, well, I mean, I'm conditioned to eat red meat. This is what I do. I'm a
Yeah,
carnivore.
yeah. I'm a
You know,
carnivore.
we got
Yeah.
red meat at bacon, you know, eggs, you know, red meat in the morning, red meat at lunch, red meat for dinner. But it's
Yeah.
not even so. What I learned was it's not so much even the red meat as in how the meat is treated, how it grass fed, grass
Oh
finished
yeah.
meats, how meats, how they look, how some, you know,
Is it
however they treat
industrial
their meat.
grown, just like
At,
just for the slaughter,
there,
or is it just that cow that you
absolutely.
have 5 or 10 years that you treated really well, which has a nice soil with good grass on it, that's
I
that
tell
gives you the
people
great milk.
I lost 100 pounds eating 4 to 5 eggs a day and bacon. You
Wow.
don't lose weight if you're eating crappy, sick foods that make you sick. It was just a part of. This is my was my lifestyle. I fasted 16 hours. I would come home.
Mhm.
I'd make an omelet, avocado. Obviously, use for my butter. I would put butter in the pan, or I would use either probably avocado oils for my eggs. I'd use 4 eggs,
Mhm.
2 pieces of bacon, and then I would probably add in some cheese, and then
Great
for
fat.
dinner, yeah, and then I would, and not. So here's the thing about cheese. You know, cheese is the same thing. Not every dairy is made equal. Not every piece of cheese is made equal because they have what they call caseins on it. So the cheese particle is mixed in with other. What we don't realize is to make food look amazing and to store food,
Mhm.
like we just read the carbon monoxide poisoning in our red meats. We need emulsifiers, and emulsifiers bind to the food, and that's how they take shape. And so, like, especially dairy, you have to have caseins, and you're shaping this cheese and molding this cheese, but it takes chemicals to do that. And
Mhm.
so, a clean organic cheese is real. Like, I mean, just changing your oil, cheese, and eggs is like night and day. I mean, eggs have look how nutritious eggs are. Eggs, avocados, and certain butters are super foods. Okay.
Absolutely.
We were told eat egg whites, right?
Yeah.
I was, oh yeah, you want to thin out, or you need to lower your heart and all that. You need to eat egg whites. And I found out, well, you know what the most inflammatory part of the egg is? It's the
Egg
white.
whites. Yeah. And the
Bec-
thing is, sorry to interrupt you. I think when you the protein, most people think that the egg white is the protein, but it's not. It's the yellow one. But because we're so stuck with these perception of language, the egg white is
right.
the protein. No, it's the yellow stuff.
It
Oh,
the and that's what happened. So the doctor who certified me, he goes, well, the white is protecting the yolk. It's protecting the nutrition. It's protecting where all that nutrition is going. That's what that white barrier is. It's a protectant.
oh,
And if you have an egg allergy, remove the white and you can actually eat the yolk. So I did that. My fourth daughter, had an egg allergy. So she would break out. She'd turn red around her face and get bumps. So, because I was at the time, I was doing a lot of eggs, and I was like, all right, well, let's test this theory out. Let's see if this guy, I mean, obviously I trust him and he's good and all that. And at the time, I wasn't certified with him. So I was like, well, let me just test this out because this guy says it's true, then she's not going to break out. I kid you not. She can have all the egg yolk she wanted. And now she's
wow.
over her egg allergy, but we were able, the body again, it most out people don't realize allergies are your immunity being, if you're susceptible to allergies, your immunity is a little low. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So like peanut butter allergies, everybody's allergic to peanut butter, everybody's allergic to egg whites, but we're able to handle them because of our, number one, it could just be in our genetic code, right? So over time your genetics kind of wear out, and people develop autoimmune diseases, and then they can pass these down in their genetic code, and that happens a lot too. A lot of it is obviously, I don't want to go into it, but you know, the V word, it rhymes with Maxine. We're not
Uh-huh.
talking about
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Epstein's Maxine. So, so what they're discovering is a lot of these autoimmune diseases, because a lot of these things happen because you have an autoimmune disease and you trigger allergies, and that's one of the things that they're talking about even now. A lot of people are dealing with, suffering with more allergies than ever before, more Down syndrome, just more overall health problems. But we look at, number one, the fructose corn syrup in our diet. We're looking at all the Maxines in our diet. We're looking at all the carbon monoxide in our food. I mean, we're looking at, I'm sure you see all those lines in the sky and cloud seeding, air
Oh,
quote.
yes, yes.
So I mean, like the agenda, and I don't know how deep you are in the holes of all these great resets, and some of the old technology that was here, and some of the way our countries looked in the 1800s when we had no tech, but then they looked like they were created with tech and
Mm,
something, and the orphan explosion in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and I mean, there's
crazy.
just so much. There's so much out there that we feel. That we're just, they're just not giving us the whole story. And then when, I don't know if you got in there, did you go on, you went on the Fighter Files, right?
No, not yet, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. All
Shout
right.
out
I thought.
George Hobbs, who I was listening to the first episode, and before I knew it was episode 121 or something like that.
Yeah.
In the last
Yeah, I'm
couple
like
of
that
like
too.
4 months, because everybody has a story to tell, and especially when you dig into some topics and you're interested in it, uh, then you want to know more about it. And I was talking yesterday with Mormon Rishi, uh, of Mormon Rishi, but a lot of people that I talk to nowadays are people that educate themselves by doing the research, and they all come together in this community. They spread their word and they say, wow, hey, oh, I was digging into that too, and I had the same assumption or the same meaning, the plausible truth, as I would call it. And that would what makes this great. And um, about your question, so how many? I haven't seen the light for like 5 years because I'm digging so many rabbit holes.
I
and there's
like that one.
and there's no rabbit hole I haven't been through yet, but there are still some big rabbit holes. One of the things is you mentioned peanut butter. I think it's palm oil, which is one of the, the 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 worst things you can eat. And peanuts are not nuts. Peanuts are beans. So the perception of all these things going on, and like I said about the language, and so what are you eating? And if you go to the grocery store and you have a straight banana, you won't take it. You won't take it because bananas are normally bent. Well, they're not. They're totally not. But because we want them bent, they grow them, so they will bend. And that's and if you dig into that, we have grocery stores here in the Netherlands. I don't know if it's still around, that basically offer food that isn't perfect. So if you have a paprika or something like that and it isn't perfectly formed, you can buy it for a cheaper price. Because when they harvest these things, they pick out only the cherries, like, oh, right, this is a good one. This is a good one. Oh, this looks a little bit odd. They won't eat it because it's a little bit deformed or something like that, but it's still a paprika. Come on. So, and that's so crazy. I think there are tons and tons of real good food that they throw away because we as a consumer do not relate to this food as it is when it's basically a little bit deformed, stuff like that. That
Right.
that's crazy too.
No, it's that's a good point because it's a part of the conditioning. So when I change the eggs in the house, the kids go, "Dad, this is too doesn't look right. It's too dark. It's not the right color." And I'm like, "No, it's the right color for nutrition." "No, Dad, I don't want it." "What do you mean you don't want it?" "It doesn't look good." Like, what do you mean? Like, it looks good to me because I know the darker the yellow, the more nutritious it is. And they
Yeah.
go, "No, we're not gonna." So they struggle with that for a little bit. Then over time they got it and they start okay. Then same thing with the butter, because again, when you're using margarine or crappy butter,
Hmm.
it's really pale and pasty and opaque. When you're using a Kerrygold or an Irish butter, it's really bright yellow. Because again, nutrition.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like greens. Like if you eat the salad that it's really, like pretty much that fiber salad, or whatever that we call it, the oh man,
Like
the
rucola stuff like that. Oh,
yeah, well, no, the other the stuff that's really like just water. It's water and fiber. I forgot what now.
oh yeah.
I don't
Uh, uh,
yeah, so just your normal house salad, right?
yeah.
It's gonna be really, really like not green. And the problem is your minerals, your nutrition, your is in the kales, the chards, the green, the leaf cruciferous. Look up cruciferous greens and it'll explain to you like, okay, well, this is where all your vitamins, minerals, your potassium's coming on. Because like we said, or like you were saying, the first thing they do when you're going for hypertension, high blood pressure is they put you on a diuretic. You have too much water in your blood. Let's get rid of the water,
Yep.
and then let's put. And I didn't know at the time that they put potassium retainers in diuretics because they know once you start peeing out all your fluids, well, you're going to lose your potassium, and that's bad for the heart. So they put you on a potassium retainer,
Yeah.
which is into the pill. And I didn't know that. I was like, oh, my sister-in-law, she broke it down. She's like, that has a potassium retainer. I don't know. What are you talking? She's like, yeah, I found out. Sure enough, it does. And I was like, darn it. They don't tell you that, and then I look at my potassium on my blood lipid panels and it's low.
Huh.
So, and you have low potassium and it's like, well, of course you're going to have heart issues and condition. And that's where the cycle comes in. High sugar depletes electrolytes. You need electrolytes. You need
Mm.
minerals. The Bible says, dust you were, dust you shall return. It's convenient that all of our minerals are found in the ground, in the dust, and that's what the Bible says that I've gave you herb and plants of the seed to eat, and that's good for food. So like naturally, that's what our body needs. Is
Mm.
is are these minerals, this it's literally dirt. It's when you think about it, like it's crazy that we revolve and our power revolves around these essential minerals. Like I didn't realize, that there was a thing called essential minerals. So when you look at your 2,000 calorie diet, a day diet, in that you have essential minerals, meaning minerals that you are supposed to have every single day
Hmm.
to have proper functionality in your body and electrolytes. And to 2,000 calories will help your basal metabolic rate, right, for the average Joe. So like those kinds of things, it's and that 2,000 calorie a day should hit a light bulb to say that's just replenishing what I need. And
Mm.
if you overeat that, then you run into, sorry, I'm coming over off of sickness, off of cold I had. Not really, throat thing and all that, but
Uh-huh.
it's been going
No
around. Been
problem.
going around here in Texas, so and I can feel the mucus, still a little bit. But yeah. So coming off of the thinking about your basal metabolic rate, 2,000 calories a day, and that's just replenishing. So if I'm exhorting, if I'm stressing, if my body's under duress, you have to replenish more. And it's not saying like 2,000 calories, like okay, McDonald's cheeseburgers and French fries and stuff.
No.
It's saying like you need these 8 cups of vegetables, 6 to 8 cups a day, 10 cups a day, to replenish. And if you don't have that, um, if anybody listening to this podcast and is worried about heart attacks and things, just look at, they say 80% of heart attack victims, they find that they are magnesium deficient.
Huh.
And what people don't realize is magnesium and potassium are like your two biggest essential minerals that you need to convert, to absorb. So when you want to take if you take vitamin D, comes from the sun, obviously, for
Hmm.
the most part. Um, the radiation from the sun creates this immune response that creates vitamin D in our body, which is great. That's why when the sun goes away, you have more sickness in the winter because you have less vitamin D, and then we're already vitamin D deficient. And there's vitamin D that's in orange juice and in milk that's synthetic. A lot of times the pasteurization process destroys it anyway, or same
Seaweed.
thing with it. Yeah. So, oh, seaweed. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great one.
Seaweed is very powerful. It has E and tons of stuff in there too.
Yeah.
So what I learned is like when you do B, you're looking for B, you need a complex. You need, B 1, 3, 6, 8, 9, I think
Hmm.
12. You need the complex. You need to have all your B vitamins to just absorb one B vitamin.
Wow.
You need minerals like magnesium to absorb vitamin C. So vitamin C is the reinforce. I mean, magnesium is a reinforcement for vitamin C. You need vitamin C to absorb vitamin D, and you need zinc. And zinc is a mineral that can be used by every cell in the body. Every cell in the body requires zinc. When you have zinc deficiencies, you go gray.
Huh, there you
You lose
go.
collagen. Yeah, people don't know that. Like your zinc
Goes hand in hand.
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And the funny thing is, when you go to a hospital, the first thing they do is line you up with sodium, with natrium, so salt. And isn't it Leviticus? With every meal, you should take salt in the Bible. So
Oh,
salt and from the word salt, there's made this word celery. Back in the days, they used to pay you in salt because salt was a very expensive, rare mineral to get, and that where the word salary comes from, and
mm,
that's really crazy. So, but what we get used to is table salt, so iodized salt, which is refined salt, which is very
right.
bad for your health. So what they do here, they cut, well, when we eat French fries, they don't put any salt on it because the government tells us, oh, it's very bad for your health and stuff like that. But yeah, that salt is bad. But can I have some other salt, please? No, we only have
Right.
table salt. So I always bring in my rucksack. I always have a little pot with some Celtic sea salt. When I take a hike and I'm feeling a little bit, when I'm feeling a little bit down or a little bit less energy, I take just a few pinches of salt in my mouth. Bam, energy comes back again because my cells can fill up with the minerals they need to build up. And it's yeah, like you said, it's there are so many things that go hand in hand with the minerals, the electrolytes, the vitamins, and stuff like that. But if you do not know, you're just continuing the stuff that you do, and basically you eat yourself to death. Like you said, you're digging your grave with your fork.
That's crazy,
It's, it
and that it's great. I know, and I like I said, I've been there because anything you put in has to come out, and like you said, the salt is key. Like when you fast, salt it can help with energy. It can help with giving you the minerals, the potassium and all that stuff that you need to get through. And some sodium's good, and I didn't know that the body had a sodium potassium pump, meaning if you're carrying too much sodium, then and not enough potassium, you're going to swell up, you're going to be dehydrated, and vice versa. So you
huh.
have to have those minerals regulated properly. So because the cell is going to retain water when it doesn't have enough of one or the other. So, and that was something because I dealt with a lot of edema, and you realize, okay, well, if I'm retaining water, there's this imbalance,
Yeah.
and being imbalanced is pretty big.
And that's one of the things. I was looking at a YouTube film from this doctor who investigates dead bodies. I don't know the word in
Pathologist,
yeah,
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 pathologist.
exactly. And he had more than 5,000 humans which died of a natural course, and he investigated them. and he noticed that they all died because of some less of vitamins and less of minerals. So he claimed when these people were taking the right minerals and the right vitamins, they would still live. But we dehydrate our body constantly because we take the wrong salt. The water that goes in goes directly out. So it's very idiotically that when you drink 2 liters of water a day, that you're going to die about dehydration. But I drink 2 liter waters a day. Yeah, but your body doesn't take it down. So that's
Well, that goes into our absorption, talk. It's like they're not teaching us how to absorb water. That's
no.
why Gatorade got popular, because they realized, well, if I put sugar with the water, then the water will get into the cell.
Hmm.
So the magic, the idea is your cell needs a key. Every cell in our body is protected, because that's how you can do chemotherapy and not kill the cell, because the cell is protected. And to open the cell up, you need sugar or salt. It's the same key. Okay. People don't know that. That's why
Ah.
if you put salt on your food, your receptor should open up and receive the nutrition with the salt, because you always need a Trojan horse to get into the cell. That's why ultimately insulin is the key, they say. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So insulin is spiked. It notifies the cell to open up, because, hey, there's food present, there's sugar, there's glucose present, and either take it into the cell and use it as fuel. It's a short chain fuel, meaning glucose is a bad fuel because it burns fast.
Mm.
So the body creates sugar. I mean, people don't, they look up gluconeogenesis. Okay. The liver can create glucose because the brain is 60%, I want to say 63% or so dependent upon glucose, meaning the reason why tumors in the brain are really hard to fight and aggressive, because they always get fed.
Huh.
That's why they say tumors usually are the hardest to combat, because our body sends majority of the glucose to the brain, because you need more of the energy in the brain, because the energy and the heart is requires 24% of your calories per day. The brain requires 26%. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So 50% of your organ function is your heart and your brain, because they're constantly working. You need your heart because you need to breathe, and you need to convert your red
Yeah.
blood cells. You got to pump the blood, right? And you need the brain, because that fires everything else. It makes it work. It
Yeah.
literally, so that's why the load on your body and stressors are so important, and like you're saying in your other podcast, when you're running yourself down for running your errands, doing your overtime, and running around and being the yes guy, you run into depletion. So if
Mm.
anybody's going into the new year, you need to think about, well, how do I get rest? That's why God rested on the seventh day. It was to show us that we need rest.
Yep.
Like, as a human being, we need rest. Like, rest is a requirement. It's not an option. It's required,
Yep.
because you have to charge. I always tell people, like, hey, if you were to send out an AI robot, like if you send out Rob the robot, how much milliamp hours of battery would this robot need? Like, how big of a charge would he need to do everything you do all day? Like,
Mm.
we could barely you could barely run a cell phone for 6 hours, and that's a small load draw. So if you're
Yep.
trying to move a robot to walk, to drive, to run, to walk up a hill, that load on that battery becomes detrimental to the robot, to where he's probably going to run out, right?
Oh, yep.
Because it just takes a lot of energy. Like, the body is amazing on how it can create energy. I didn't even realize the body actually can create water. It can
Wow.
create sugar, and it can create water. It has already the properties for O2 molecules. I didn't know that.
Wow.
And
How?
it's like through hydrogen, it creates hydrogen, just like it creates histamines. Like, the body creates stuff.
Yeah.
So it can create through I'll look it up, but it creates it. I want to say it's because we already have the molecules in our body, and then it adds in it adds in what does it add in? It adds in one more molecule, because we already have the hydrogen, because H2O, right? So
Okay.
we already
Yeah.
have two of them, and then it creates the hydrogen. So we already have the other two molecules, so it creates the hydrogen to create a water molecule. That's why,
Wow.
like we said, when you dehydrate, it's not that you lose water per se, you lose the minerals, you lose the
Hmm.
electrolytes. And as soon as you lose electrolytes, the body can't create anything if it's depleted.
Yeah, because it can't
So
transport the nutrients
it
to the
can't
cells.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And then it starts breaking down because that's why when you walk in the desert, you feel like crap, you feel dehydrated, you're running a marathon, you need water, and then the body goes into another gear.
Huh.
And that's where a lot of the winners get to that next gear because they understand, like, hey, the body can be pushed because then it's forced to see it, it knows you're going to get water. So it's why is it going to create water? It's just like if you go onto a respiratory machine, your breathing is going to get worse because the body's going to say, oh, you're breathing for me? Great. I'm going to just down regulate and put the energy somewhere else and not in the lungs. The problem with that is then the lungs can go out
Hmm.
and
That,
you get on. So that a lot of people know that it's like, oh yeah, if you get on a machine, then you can't be on it too long because you need your lungs to work. So let's get up and walk and get your lungs flowing again,
yeah.
because if it's on it for too long, you'll actually cause respiratory damage
Huh. And
because homeostasis.
our brain loves comfort. It loves it.
Yes.
But when you challenge it, like I said just before we hopped on a podcast with the breathing techniques from Wim Hof. So what you do is like uh, almost hyperventilating, like 30 breaths. Like, and then if you do it good, you come down with the breath from your belly to your lungs, and then you repeat it again like a wave, right? 30, 30, 30 times. Then you stop. So you exhale for the last time and you stop breathing and just be in yourself. It's immense because your brain is going to tell you, hey man, you got to breathe. But because you notice it, because you're aware of the situation that you do not want to breathe until you really need to breathe, please do. um, it's really amazing what your body does, especially when you do that with 3 reps. So what you do after when you want to breathe, so your reptilian brain is going to kick in, right? You got to breathe, but you can eventually you can bring that also down. You can break your heart rate down only by thinking to your heart. So what you do then, if you have to start breathing, you only inhale, hold it for 15 seconds, and let it go. Man, I did a lot of things like drug wise and stuff like that. So I know what stripping is and stuff like that. But
Mm.
the body produces pure DMT for yourself. That's amazing. But not only that, all these chemical reactions like adrenaline, endorphin, all this stuff has been created by our body if we treat it really well and we know how to deal with it. It's the same thing if you are an athlete, like a sports guy, stuff like that. And when you do this home run, your adrenaline is pumping and stuff like that. Even if you're exhausted, you can do that because your body, you push your body with your mind. And if you got mind over body, then you can awesome things. This guy, Wim Hof, he was running a marathon in the desert without water, only by knowing how his system works. He was doing a deep dive somewhere in North Pole where it's really, really cold. And he
Right.
was doing a deep dive with no gear, just himself.
That's crazy, man.
And when he dived in, he had
Jeez.
he was doing it like 50 meters under ice, and his retina froze up. But he still knew if I'm gonna push like 10, 10 more pushes, I will be there. He did some tremendous things. One of the things that he is very familiar, very famous of here in the Netherlands, he was training a little group of people. They went to the hospital and they were injected by some virus. And only by breath work, all of them were healed by themselves within 1 or 2 days. They have it's medical. It's been written down. And
Yeah,
he knows a
journal.
lot of the how the system works and stuff like that. But when it comes to breathing, It's one of the most parts that people do automatically. Oh yeah, I breathe. Oh yeah, think about it. When you go outside, a lot of people in our society nowadays don't live outside or don't take a deep breath because they're living in a city which is polluted. They get in the car, they get into the office, they get back in the car, they get back home, sitting on the couch, are exhausted about the day, no fresh air. Fresh air is one of the biggest things where we can also, with salt, with vitamins, with minerals that we need, we can push ourselves to the limit. What does a an athlete does? He knows how to deep breathe into his system. What he's doing afterwards nowadays, they do it more because of this Wim Hof guy. When they trained really hard, they take an ice bath. I take cold showers once in a while. And you know the crazy thing about that is right when you jump out of bed, which is really comfortable, really nice, and really warm, even when it's very cold outside, your bed is still warm. You jump into a cold shower. You would freeze first of all, but then magic happens when you get out of the shower, like 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 minutes if you're a diehard and stuff like that. Your body's gonna warm itself. You feel this energy flowing, and it's unbelievable because it's cold. You would freeze normally. No, it's gonna pump you up. And um, this Wim Hof guy, he knows a lot about how the system works and how your heart rate, how it's pumping, what it's doing with it. I don't know too much about it, about the details, but look him
Yeah.
up. And Adrian, wow, you have been digging into this rabbit hole food like a lot, and basically because of some sad news that you received from your sister, or was it your
Both, well, our mother-in-law and then our sister,
yeah,
my
exactly,
sister-in-law.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's been a good journey, and then just my own health journey, and it's just been a wild ride, and the like you said, with even cold showers, like it's the same thing as the sun, where the sun produces this radiation that our bodies create vitamin D. When you take a cold shower, you get in an ice bath, your body goes into repair mode. It sends in to salvage your areas of coldness. It has to warm it up, so it has to send signaling to each cell and lights your cells up and
Mm,
creates the healing process to restore. And those are, and it activates your immune system, your basal metabolic rate. It like does so many different things that are powerful. And so yeah, that like I said, there's so much we can be trained and taught. I mean, we see it. We see athletes take ice baths and things, but they don't really. They're not. They don't teach these things in school. They teach us numbers. Well, the
yeah,
numbers make sense. The numbers and this, and
you
they
have to be
teach
a
us their
slave,
history.
a
Yes,
law
yeah,
obedient slave.
like
Don't push it.
Rockefeller, that's right. Yeah, we don't want you to think, man, just go work for somebody. It's like, no, be your entrepreneur and create, because
Yeah.
God made us created, to have the ability to create and have imaginations, and it's a good, health is one of the good rabbit holes, because one thing that you can't get back is time, and as we
Mm,
all get older, and like you said, it's people who pass away and they just didn't have enough minerals. It's a shame, right? It's like,
yeah.
man, that's the simplest thing. Add a little more pink salt or a little more iris salt, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
eat a little cleaner, eat a little less, so your body's not doing so much garbage and chemicals. There's so many little tips and tricks you can do to just clean up your diet, change your oil, change, sleep a little more. I mean, there's
And
a
look
lot
at
of things that
nature.
just,
So,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. Look at
No, no, it's
nature.
really,
Now, when you look outside, it's winter here in Europe, starting. The trees the leaves are falling and stuff like that. So they're
yeah,
basically now gone because the autumn is past. But with Resurrection Day in April, everything starts to bloom because the sun is giving this radiation, as you said, the vitamins that it needs to grow. So when you go
yeah,
outside, I well for the last 5 to 10 years, I don't put any sunscreen on.
right.
Not because we haven't invited that for like 60 or 70 years. I think there's also this great song about it, sunscreen, blah blah blah. But um, our ancestors didn't have that one. Maybe they use some herbs and stuff like that. If it's really, if I would walk in the desert, that's a different story, right? You what do they do? The Bedouins and the people that live in they don't put sunscreen on; they put clothing on. Just like you protect yourself for the cold, you protect yourself for the sun. I need to do that because I'm bald headed or I shave my head. So I always have a hat on or something like that because to protect my dome, right?
Right.
Um, because otherwise it's going to be fried and I don't need a fried brain. Um, but it's crazy how the world today is deceiving us from all the things that could be taught within a week to people to know the basic things of life, how you function and how you can function well as a human being, how to be healthy, how to breathe in a good way, how nutrients works, how your body works. That's been you can teach that to a class of little not little but young people within a week. Go outside, take a walk, breathe, and then just exercise with the breath. God bless you. And
Thank you.
they
Sorry.
will see how everything's changed because we got these four seasons. We got four wind, um, like northeast, southwest. Everything is based in four, and wow, I love this. I love this already because I learned so much about this, Adrian, and how it works. Um, and I got some notes which I made to prepare myself a little bit, um, because you were also on the flat Earth files and on the firmamental, right? And
Yes, sir.
these are basically about flat Earth. And I would like to know what's your journey and yeah, what's your basically thought on this flat Earth? Uh, shall we call it a theory?
I mean, it's something that I didn't really look at until this year. I kind of stumbled upon George's podcast, and then, like you said, episode one just opened my eyes. But I was kind of getting on handing it back when I was telling you I was doing video editing in COVID. So when you do video editing, you learn depth of field. You learn I learned how to create graphics. I have a few different. It's called Affinity Designer. And then Affinity has two other programs that basically you design and create logos. You create magazine. You can do like web page stuff, like amazing design editor software. So when I'm doing like Final Cut Pro and you're doing depth of field and you're learning how to create and key on objects and cut them out and green screen and edge detection, you kind of really you're able to examine and see things a lot clearer and faster. It's like like I said, I used to be a worship leader for a long time. Played keys. I play the guitar. I'm salivating over your guitars in the back because I know looks like a Gibson custom headstock over there and a
Yeah, it's
Fender
an
headstock
epiphone.
behind you.
Yeah.
And oh yeah. I just got an Epiphone Southern Fade. I love Epiphone because they have the inspired bike. I had so real quick. I know we want to get into flat Earth, but I did have I had a Gibson Classic and I had an Epiphone. My first guitar was an Epiphone. My second guitar was a Taylor. My third was this Gibson Classic, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. But when I played the Epiphone and I played the Gibson, I was like, well, I'm not that great at the guitar. I'm decent, I'm still a beginner to me.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't really. They both felt comfortable. I was like, so I ended up selling my Gibson and then I sold my Epiphone and then I ended up picking up this new Epiphone. And I was like, and then I watched a lot of reviews and then it's inspired by Gibson line, Kalamazoo headstock and, the Indian Laurel feels great. I mean, I kind of wish
Yeah.
left me, but, I don't mind. Indian Laurel's great. And I got this Southern Ave one a couple weeks ago. I really love it. It's like, man, it's because I like I said, I had to sell some and got it. And but I love Epiphone, man. That's a great that looks great. I was like,
It's a
okay.
it's a black beauty.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
I was
it's
looking at
a
that
it's
one.
a special.
The
It's
triple, yeah. You got the three humbuckers, yes.
yeah,
Oh wow,
and it's
yeah.
well played,
That's
but I played it
nice.
so much that it's kind of wearing it out. But it's the funny thing is that this is exactly the same model as a Gibson, but it has a really small dot somewhere on the neck, and that's why Gibson says, "Okay, we bring it to Epiphone, and they can build it off." But when you buy this one in on a Gibson, you 3,500 or 4, 5,000
Yeah.
euros,
Oh, it's crazy.
and this is like well, basically around $1,000 guitar, and it plays great. And
Right.
which I did last year because I can't afford a Gibson yet. So Gibson, when you listen to this, please get over because I can play some things. This is one of the guitars I like to play the most. It's the SG
Yeah.
version, and again, I just can't afford the Gibson SG, which is like 3,500, like the standard and stuff like that. But this is so awesome. It plays so well, and yeah, and I got this Stratocaster, and it's a Harley Benton. I don't know if you know this brand in the USA. It's from a music house. And the funny thing is, I will take it for a sec. So it's basically a Stratocaster, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this is like 65 euros.
Oh, wow.
So you can smash it on stage.
65, 65.
65 euros.
That's crazy.
And it's got everything on it. So the only thing I had to do is to file down these frets because they were
Yeah.
humping. So I was cutting up
Okay.
my things. But the funny thing is, I know this guy, which I did an interview with, a real musician, Paolo Phoenix. Um, he told me also there are a lot of guitars which he bought, which are very expensive. That when he plays it once, it will he has to tune it again, and the cheaper guitars are staying in tune.
I
Like the
believe
G
it.
string, the G string is always the one that
I,
always
I,
needs
I'm,
picking up.
I pulled my Epiphone out after a year and it was in tune because I had my Gibson and I was like, oh, I played the Gibson more. And then I pulled my Epiphone out, just messing with it, showing my buddy. And I was like, it's still in tune. It's
Yeah,
over a year. Like, that's insane because I didn't touch it. I mean, I just left it in the guitar, was in the case in a good spot. And, the air was nothing, no change. And it stayed in tune. I'm like, that was crazy. That was one of my limited Epiphones. I think I paid like 4.99 for it or something like that. And
mm.
man, I just sold it too. And I was like, I sold to a guy on Facebook for his daughter, and I kind of wish I didn't, but oh well. And
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
this new one, so
Life comes around sometimes.
yeah, I got into luthier. I got into luthier work too. I was like, let me learn about the truss rod, the tailpiece. I mean, all that stuff. So I was like, even the fret work and your inlays and um, your height. I got my gauge right here. Actually, I had to lower the action on my
Oh
Epiphone.
yeah.
That was the only thing that I felt. Actually, I ran my microfiber down the side to check the frets, and they were all actually pretty smooth and pretty good. No
Mhm.
snags, nowhere. Ran up and down a few times, so the fret work was actually good. I checked all my frets. I lowered the, at the nut, and then at the tailpiece area, I kind of hit that first and last fret. Kept the wire, checked all my fret height. They all
Oh
look
yeah.
great, and it plays good too. So I'm very proud of Epiphone. I think they're doing a great job. And like people say, they've been bought by Gibson for what, 60 years now?
Yeah.
60 years they've been owned by
Yeah.
Gibson. So it's like, I mean, what? Everybody's waiting for a Gibson name on those headstocks now. They're like, it's about time they changed the font to the Gibson font too.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, so
it's crazy because when you when you dig into that, because a lot of musicians that I know that are performing and stuff like that, they have really the creme de la creme, like the amplifiers and the guitar stuff and gold plate, I don't know, whatever. But um my thought is I have um not expensive guitars. I play a guitar which is now basically 30 years old. It's an acoustic one. There's a bomb in it. I still play it. I record with it. I bought acoustic guitar just like 2 or 3 weeks ago for 17 euros on a flea market, right? put on
That's
some new
crazy.
strings on it, and it's an area. It's like a guitar, like 200, 300 euros. But I paid 17 euros for it, and it plays
70.
brilliant.
Oh
But
my
the thing is,
gosh.
what if you, because every guitar has its own sound. If you feel the sound of the guitar, how he wants to be frequenced, then magic
Yeah.
happens. And especially with the SG, it's this rock guitar, Angus Young is playing stuff
Yeah.
like that. And when I see
Yeah.
these guys play, it's like riding a motorcycle, but you don't have the creme de la creme. And then you go to a racetrack, and you're gonna have a
Right.
Ducati or a MV Agusta, stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
The high
now
end.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for me, that's where I was at. I was like, well, I'm just not I'm not that kind of player yet where I need a Gibson, even though I want one. I want another one eventually, and I'll probably get it. I'm thinking either a custom or I found a good one at the Guitar Center for like 15, 1700. I can't remember, but it was normally I think it's about 2700. So I was like, well, if I go on with cash or something down the road, maybe I can get it for I don't know, 12 or 13 or something.
Mm,
They'll just take it, because it ain't
yeah.
moving or something. But yeah, it's definitely I'm definitely love the guitars, man. I'm getting more into it and I've been playing for almost 10 years off and on, but mainly the last 5 years, I'd say 4 or 5 years, really heavily more. And I got a teacher, he's helping me. I'm getting into classical stuff. But like I said, I don't consider that my first thing was the keys, playing the keys and singing, but the guitar kind of evolved into it, and I just fell in love with it. And
Huh.
I love the art of them. I love how I was watching videos on how they're made, how the acoustics are made, how
Yes.
the China Epiphones are made compared to the American Gibsons, and just really geeking out on some of that luthier, intonation and like. From the like I said, the maple tops, maple veneers, and just the sound. But most of the time, if you ever watch the Guitarista, his podcast or his YouTube, he's like, I'm a fanboy of Epiphone. He's like, they sound great, and they're just not as expensive as Gibson. It's like,
Unbelievable.
they're pretty good. It's like, and they're like most of the time on a blind test, people can't even tell the difference. Like
Oh, that's
seriously, he
crazy
does it on
too.
his channel. He's
I
like,
got
you
this
can't because
what's it called? Called a Centaur pedal. It's like a
yeah, yeah.
pedal. Um, if you buy it brand new or maybe from a collector's item, you will pay minimum $5,000. Now I was looking at
Wow.
YouTube because YouTube is my biggest class local. It's my biggest knowledge based thing that everything that I'm interested in, I just type it in, and especially 5 years ago, I got all the information that I need, bad or wrong, whatever, and make my own point of plausible truth. But I was seeing this video of these guitarists, and they were saying, okay, this is the Neutron, and this is the Centaur, 5,000 euros, and this is bought from Alibaba, something like that, in China for $49. They couldn't tell which was which when they closed their eyes, and they didn't know which put on. There was a little
Unbelievable.
frequency that was a little bit different, but the rest was totally copy paste. Unbelievable.
Oh, it is. I mean, and that's the good thing about like tech and you can definitely find good stuff, for like we call it the dupes, but I mean there's some bad dupes, but I mean when it comes to music, it seems like the dupes aren't that bad. I don't know, especially the
No.
guitars, they actually one guy cut open a guitar. He said it was like $100 something dollar guitar. He goes, it's supposed to be like five different pieces. He cut it open. It was a single piece. It was off-brand Les Paul. I think it was from Amazon or something. But he cut it open. He's like, this should be a piece of junk. He goes, this is actually a solid guitar, solid piece. So I couldn't believe it. He's like, I can't believe it. I thought this was going to be just veneer tops. And he's like, it is a legit. So you just never know either. Because these companies
Yeah.
are weird. But no, that's funny. I just want to get in. I saw your your the frets on the custom frets. I was like, oh, it's a custom shop guitar. I was like, oh, okay. But trust me, I was looking at the cool with Epiphone and all that because they play great. It's like I got 5 kids. I can't spend $4,000 on a guitar, and they
No,
they got to eat.
no, me
So,
neither. And I knew that when I I bought this guitar, and I didn't have the money yet, but my girlfriend was helping me out, so I made a payment up front, and I went to
Yeah.
the guitar shop, and I said, I got money, so I want to have my guitar, right? And I basically walked through that one because it was a Black Beauty. It was really good price. It was, I
Yeah.
love the style, stuff like that. And he said, "Oh yeah, great man." So he came with this Gibson case, and he opened it up, and I just like, "Well, that's not my guitar." He said, "Yeah, man, that's your guitar." It was a Gibson Studio, like
Yeah.
black and
Yeah.
white. I
Yeah.
said, "No, what? That's not my guitar. I need this Black Beauty." He said, "Really?" Said yes, and he went back to to the back. He came back with my guitar. He said, "Dude, this guitar is more played than every instrument in my shop, and I really have to tell you that I feel a little bit heartsick that that this guitar is going to a new owner."
Wow.
He said, "Should I plug it in?" And I knew I couldn't play anything. Well, not yet. I'm not calling
Right.
myself disorganized for no reason.
Right. Right.
So I said, no, no, everything is going to be all right. So I put it in the case, and I drove back home, played it. And after 4 or 5 months, one of the switches, that there was a loose contact. So I went back to the shop, and he opened up the case, and he said, "Oh, that's the Black Beauty." And he said, "Man, you're playing all over the fretboard." He said, "Every guitar is just like the first three frets, maybe on the
Right.
fifth,
Right.
where the A is, when the pentagonic scale could." He said, "Oh man, let me check this out." And he was calling me while I was back in the city. He said, "Man, I got a problem with the wiring and stuff like that, so I have to basically put another knob on the switch." And I
Wow.
said, "Well, if that's the case, just do it." And I came back, and he said, "I just took out every single part which could be broke, replaced it, so you have the original switch still on it." I said,
Oh wow.
"Wow!" And it's, yeah,
No,
it's playing
it's a
flawless.
nice man. That is. I was actually looking at that one too, and I was like, yeah, it was just a little more here. I think it went up actually in price. I think right now it went up to almost either 1250 or 14 or something. Something. It's up
Wow.
there now in the States. So I was like, because it's got the triple humbucker, so
Mm.
it's. I was like, oh, I don't know, but I ended up settling my Southern Fade one. But yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
Oh
But yeah,
man.
let's get into Flat Earth real quick. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Oh yeah,
We're
we were a
rolling
little bit
on.
off topic, but not that's disorganized productions. We skip
That's right.
branches like a squirrel.
Right, right. No, that's fine. So, and here's the now obviously flat Earth is one of the biggest conspiracies, and for me, I guess living in Texas and just seeing a lot of the flat ground. I mean, like I remember one time I was in a video in Plano, Texas, and then looking at Dallas, and then looking at Fort Worth, and I'm thinking like, there's no way that's Fort Worth. I mean, that's a ways away from me,
Huh.
and I'm like, I shouldn't be able to see that from here. If you look on a map and look at Plano, Texas, and Dallas, I mean, Fort Worth, they're pretty far away. Fort Worth is way more. Plano's eastern-ish, northeast, eastern, and Fort Worth is southern. It's like down a little bit, and probably about an hour drive or so. But I'm like, that's kind of far. And I'm like, but you could see that and beyond on a
Huh.
clear day. And it's like, wow, and so then I just whatever, I've always thought about it. My brother-in-law actually approached me a couple years ago during COVID. He goes, "Hey man, I want you to check this flat Earth stuff." I'm like, "Dude, get out of here with that. If the Earth is flat, whatever." But I said, all I know is I could see a round sun and a round moon, right?
Hmm.
And all the planets and stars, right? I'm thinking, well, that's what I thought I saw, right? And I'm like, okay. So that was kind of that. And then just listening to George and then reading the Bible again and really looking at it and thinking about it and then going into my Greek. And for me, my Bible has the coordinates and dictionary built into it.
Hmm.
So I just tap on a word and then it breaks it down. And then, I go on the website and look at the interpretation of the word. And then that word firmament is like, wow. And then just seeing how it has been removed, like in the NIV and other translations to even now in space and some of them. And it's like, okay, well, that's, it's very confusing to look into uh, flat Earth per se, because it's like Obama talked about the flat earthers, Trudeau talked about the flat earthers,
Mm,
in a negative way, obviously, and saying like, like you guys are crazy.
yeah.
And for me, it was like, well, I mean, the moon landing made no sense. But I guess because when you look at it, it looks like, like George always says, tinfoil and aluminum. I mean, like, you're talking about the numbers they push. If we're moving at 66,000 miles an hour, the vacuum of space, the G forces of just getting out of the atmosphere in a moving galaxy to get anywhere would be like you have to fight a lot of G forces, right? I mean, that's just
Yep.
using their logic. Like you need propulsion to leave the Earth to go to a moon, and you have to get through the different levels of the atmosphere. And we all know about the Van Allen radiation belt and all that stuff.
Mm,
And forget that, even just the thermosphere, which people don't realize is almost 4,000 degrees, which we don't even have a metal that can withstand that. So just to get through the thermosphere, to get through the Van Allen radiation belt,
yeah.
and then to get through atmospheric conditions at moving at 66,000 miles per hour, not the 1,000 miles per hour we're air quote rotating at.
Uh-huh.
Um, I
Uh-huh.
was just trying to explain to my daughter how space works, and it was just like I sound like a clown. Oh, we're moving at 66,000 miles an hour, or we're rotating at 1,000 miles an hour. We're chasing the sun, and gravity keeps it all in. But then
Mm,
gravity doesn't affect your moons, but then they affect the planet, and then not that planet's moon, but then the planet behind it, but not that planet's moon. It's like, okay, we're just. I'm saying, you know what? I'm sorry, dear. I don't believe in space anymore.
but
Sorry about that.
but that's what we normally do, right? When we hear some stuff that we can relate with, or that we can copy our mind with, we say, okay, whatever, dude.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
scientists try to explain something, and of course they're brilliant minds. But yesterday, I think we debunked so many things about the moon with Mormon Rishi. I think so. When you basically go with a rocket up, and let's say you go through the Van Allen belt and you go into space, which is a vacuum. What kind of fuel you use to go to the moon? Because you can go
right.
off any direction. Well, they basically did a math, and you need fuel the big as the Empire State Building just to go to the moon. Well, how about back?
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I always tell people, I go, we see Neil Armstrong and those guys come out of their little pod, right, in the water.
Yeah,
But where the ships land? And then how do they get into these museums? The rover and all that.
yeah.
Like how did it all get back if they just land in these pods?
Who filmed the landing and who filmed? You know, just a
Well, they'll say,
simple
yeah, yeah.
question.
And
And
then
then,
where was it?
okay,
How come we don't see it? How come we don't see this shuttle around and rotating around the moon while they're like? There's just so much in there. It's like, man,
yeah.
I was like, I'm just over it now. And then I'm like, it mathematically can't happen. Plus 200 on the hot side, minus 200 on the cold side. Everything would freeze, or everything would be so hot to the touch they couldn't do anything, and it would melt most likely, right? It's like,
Mm,
but yeah, at this point, it's like, and I'm kind of like some of the other guys in Georgia and those guys, like, well, where does the moon go for 2-3 days a week, or I mean a month, where it phases in and phases out because they think the moon is plasma, or they feel like the moon is something that we don't know,
mm-hmm,
because it does cycle, and the Bible calls the moon a her.
mm-hmm.
She will lose her light. And it calls the sun feminine, his light. And the moon has 12 cycles a year, like a female who has 12 cycles a year. So you're
Yep.
like, and it's a cold, there's so much into the cosmology and the system that God created for that. As we start looking into it, it's like, wow. Then you look into the words, and I just like the fact that just looking into the firmament and how they're in the firmament, the sun and the moon, and then you start getting into angles of the earth and angles of the sun and the local sun, and it's like, man, it's mind blowing that that narrative of the galaxies and space is pushed so hard. But when I was telling George, like on his podcast, when I was, because that's why I wanted to get in on his podcast, because I was like, I just watched like UFOs for like 6 months. I mean, like everything from alien abductions to Bob Lazar and
Mm,
Area 51 and Element 115, and just, the abduction in Arizona, abduction in New York, where this guy and this girl in New York were gone, Betty and whatever. And then I think it's 1963. They were abducted for like a week or something. And then this guy in Arizona with these guys who witnessed the craft, and this guy was abducted for a week as well, and they got brought back, and it was like, okay, and it's like you start kind of like getting sucked into it a little bit, like, wow,
hmm
these people are talking about their accounts, and there's other witnesses, and then as you go down these rabbit holes, it ends up being paranormal experiences. Like it starts turning into paranormal, like, oh well, these beings phased into our room, or these beings of light came down, and then they couldn't communicate but through through telepathy. And you start thinking about that, like, okay, well, now they're are you in a dream state? Are you in, what kind of state are you in?
mm,
Like, are you hypnotized? Are you cognizant? Because the Bible talks about, like, I seen all the angel of the Lord came, and then I had a vision, right? The angel of the Lord came, and then I saw, right? So like, so people throughout the Bible had histories of having visions and dreams and seeing things. And the Bible's clear that angels would still come down. Paul said, "Be not deceived. Do you not know you entertain angels?" And we don't know, what these angels are, what they look like. They may look like a homeless guy on the street, and we're not
mm,
giving our coats, and we're not helping them, and we're just looking at them like trash. But it could be a test for us, to stay humble, to stay focused, and
yeah.
ultimately that's something that I'm big about, like staying humble, stay focused. God's going to bless me. God's going to be my portion. I may not be perfect. I may not do everything right, but He's got my back. He's going to keep my family. He's going to keep me healthy. If we have each other, we have our love, we're going to make it through. We're going to be all right. He's going to be my strength. And, just those kinds of things. And the Holy Spirit give me understanding. But I was really kind of getting lost in UFOs, because I'm like, well, if the UFOs exist, then there's more to the Bible, or there's more to life, or there's just more to what we know. So I need
hmm
to know if they exist, like I really want to know. And as we just got it more into it, and more into how they believe, like Aleister Crowley, and the JP guy, JPL lab guy, Jack Parsons, and
hmm
opening portals, and you start, and again, it goes right back to aliens, and then turns right back to paranormal. And paranormal to me is demonic, demons, Satan, the occult, and those things that the symbology that we see in Washington D.C. I'm sure where you guys are from, tons of symbology of the ancient gods, and
Oh
all of
yeah.
our NASA, Orion, and all these crazy things, and Apollo and Apollos. And so it just kind of got into, like, the more I dug down the alien thing, like, you just dig into paranormal, and the more you think about space and traveling to the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, what they say is 4.5 light years away, 27.5 trillion miles away, right? Like, I mean, unfathomable, kinds of distances, but we could see them. Like, it's like I could see that's the closest star, 4.5 light years away. What about
Yep.
the other stars and galaxies? And then you start realizing everything is CGI. Like, as they send out these images of space, and you're like, well, if I'm looking at, let's say I'm looking at an image from NASA, right? And it has, let's say, 1,000 or 20,000 dots for stars.
hmm
Well, those are air quote galaxies, right?
Yep.
Like,
They
those are
say
supposed to be 20,000 galaxies that you're seeing, but like, that's not how it would look. It would work.
no.
Like, just think about that. Like, if I'm seeing the nebula and all these, well, it has like 10 galaxies or 20, all these, they just throw random numbers out there, and we're just, hook, line, and sinker. Like, yeah, that looks right. It's like, wait a second. Like, if that's a galaxy, it needs space around it. It needs more space and more.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just gets, overwhelming to the point where we're just like, okay, there's all these images, there's all this proof, and we sent out the James Webb, and every day there's new James Webb, you
Hmm.
know, images from the James Webb telescope, and look at this amazing image, and it's like, dude, that's like totally CGI. Like you can, you know, it's clear. It's like you're just making stuff up, and then. I don't know if you saw, but we have like the Demon Comet coming to the Earth, or could hit that Demon asteroid that's supposed to hit the Earth soon, or like
Oh
some
yeah,
crazy Devil's Comet. They got the
we need some
Devil's
fear.
Comet. I'm like,
We
yeah,
need
I'm
some
like,
fear.
oh my, yeah, yeah, like pump up the fear machine. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. We're gonna make money out of it, and we take everything you have on freedom, so we can basically dump you more down.
I mean, it's like insane, and I'm like, so I just went down all that, and you know, I just and not because not like I'm seeking or I'm very well balanced. You know, I have a great job. I have a great church. I'm a family man. Just like I'm like anybody else, you know. It was last year during the holidays. I'm watching, you know, Star Wars and all this space stuff, and it's all out there, you know. You know the Marvel universe, the DC universe, and all this
Yeah,
stuff. So you get wrapped in that. You're like, okay, cool. Then I want to see. Then I started thinking like, well, let me just follow up on some of this aliens. Let me just see what it's all about. And I think that was because they started releasing the UFO documents, you know, like all those
yeah. With Robert Greer and
UAPs.
stuff like that, like
Yeah,
disclosure and unacknowledged and stuff like that.
yeah. But then they're even doing the Pentagon meetings where they're doing the actual Congress was meeting about these disclosed, you know, objects that were air quote unidentified flying phenomena. So they,
Huh.
our Congress, you can YouTube it, went, you know, and did this whole like 2 day thing of about UFOs and disclosure. So like it got headlines. So I'm like, okay, well, the government's clearly looking at this. They got this tic tac, they got the pill, they
Mhm.
got all this stuff. Well, let's see what they got and look into it. So that's really what drove kind of everything, you know, last year on getting down this UFO rabbit hole that led into April where I got into the flat earth. But it
Mhm.
was like at the end of all the UFO stuff, it was like to get to these stars or these guys are, you know, supposedly they're from these beings that are from, it's like, man, that's like, I mean, how do you get there without, I mean, it's unfathomable distances. So it just got me thinking like, well, maybe they're teleporting, or maybe they have these machines that are allowing them to phase in and phase out, and they're talking about these stargates, and that's
Mhm.
like the big thing now everybody's going to hear. And I just kind of wanted to put it out there in the you know on you know, the flat earth files and stuff on George, and just even, you know, just saying like, don't be deceived, you know, don't, the enemy is going to tell you, you know, like, hey, it's this, it's that, it's you know, it's aliens, or it's other governments, or it's that. But the reality is it's us, you know, it's our stuff,
Yeah.
technology that was and I believe in, I don't know if you're familiar with the Nephilim and all that. I do believe they're around. I believe there are entities and things that are definitely paranormal, and that's why I was saying everything just led back to the paranormal. And I was telling my brother about Maria Orsic, and she was the one that was Hitler's channeler. And when she channeled, apparently she was either working with the top physicist, or she was one of his physicists, or she had a role that she played in his you know, team. And if you look up Maria Orsic, and that's let me see, Orsic,
Mhm.
Maria Orsic, she was the one who apparently got Hitler's self propulsion craft created. So he was the one who, to air quote, had the first sentient aircraft. He was the one who had the gravity, anti gravity craft and technology, and apparently that's what led into us, you know, ending up with Warner von Braun and pretty much all of Germany's top
Mm.
scientists.
Yeah.
So because
You
like
got
how
them
did that
now.
happen? I thought that, yeah, I thought they're all killers, man. What are we doing? Bringing all the
Yeah,
Germans
yeah.
here, you know, into our top secret, you know, areas. But you know, that's when you kind of you start learning and looking. But if you look at the craft that they show, and I always tell people too, I go, you know, the thing about Roswell and the footage or anything where aliens, they always look like the tech of the time, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, it
Like
does.
like like the 1947 craft looked like a 1947 craft. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
and
Like, yeah, okay.
I just searched the name Maria Orsic, and the first thing I see is she would be leader of the Vril society. And if you know these are two crazy movies. It's Iron Sky. Um, I don't know if you know it. It's also science fiction, but it's we go to the moon, and we notice that on the backside of the moon, the Nazis have their
Their
thing,
base.
and it's about Vril. It's about Vril also, and I don't know if you're familiar with some video games. I played Wolfenstein quite a lot, all of them, and they are telling about this paranormal thing that the Nazis were doing with, and how would you come up with these things if there's no knowledge about? You can make it
Right.
up. You know what I mean?
No,
So
I
they
agree, and I agree.
yeah, and how do you look at movies now like Star Trek or Star Wars? I mean,
I
there's
mean,
a lot of CGI.
it's disclosure though, because like I tell people, you look at the Star Trek ran from 1960 to 63,
Mm-hmm.
early early 60s, excuse me, early 60s, and they show the Earth in Star Trek from away from the planet, right? Like they
Yeah,
show the planet and zoomed out of the planet, and they show Earth in the early 60s before we went to the moon. How do they have
crazy.
these images?
Yeah,
How do they know? How do they know before we went out in space?
you know
So,
about
so
the pale blue dot, the picture that was taken by a telescope. You see a lot of blur, right? And you
right.
see some layers in it, and you see a little dot, and they say that's Earth. But I mean, if I make a very blurry photo and I will tell you this is an entity, or this is a paranormal being, or this is Earth, or this is a star, you would believe it, because that's also a Nazi thing. If you tell the lie time after time after time, people are going to believe it. And that's what they do. They
no, but and
deceive.
no, and that's the thing. Like when I got into Admiral Byrd, and they said they sent Admiral Byrd out into Antarctica because the Nazis were already there and they already had bases in Antarctica. And apparently they were these some of these beings they were in communication with were from Antarctica or potentially out in that area of the world. And that's where you get into extraterrestrial, meaning just extra territory, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to outer space, right?
Yeah,
And
extra
you know,
land.
so that yeah, extra land. So to me, that makes a lot more sense, and just knowing that some parts of the earth have a winter of darkness for 6 months and a summer of sun for 6 months because of the way the solstice works, and it goes in and then it moves back out. And
Back out,
every day,
exactly.
even yeah, and every day here, my moon pattern is not the same. One day it's over this house, one day it's over my house, one day it's down the street a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not exactly the same. And then the speed varies. So it's not consistently going around the earth as we're told. So
Mm-hmm.
it's doing something else because it's clearly not going around at the same pace, or else there would be a problem with the speeding up and slowing down of the sun and the moon. And
Yeah.
like, it just doesn't make sense. So, like, we just know there's something else going on, but you know, no one wants to talk, no one can talk about it. We're already, like you said, the Nazis are crazy, conspiracy theorists. We need
We are
you know,
critical
maybe we need help.
thinkers
Yeah.
that should be shut off, because why why the lie? George is also asking that quite some time, every podcast. Why the lie?
Why the lie? Well, I
Yeah.
know why, because I saw a headline yesterday that they're asking for more money so
Oh,
they could do more research. Yeah, so that
oh,
let's get that $75 billion budget up to 85 or 95, right? Like, I mean, it's
oh.
just a money pit, man. It's like,
They need some new
and
equipment to make better movies.
yeah,
And
right. I'm like,
probably the guy that broke out and said, I edit everything with this program to make sure that everything looks like NASA wants to, like Venus and the Earth and stuff like that. Probably he's been fired, so they need a new guy who's deceiving us, everyone, with the pictures that they provide us. and that guy
Insane.
would say, okay, I need a bigger budget, man. I need a bigger machine and
That's right. I need
better
more money.
software.
That makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense, right? Like the new guy's like, hey, well, we need to expand our operations, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of where it's at, man. I'm like, and I don't know if you know Rob Skiba, but Rob
Yep.
Skiba, yeah, he was really good. He had a debate I was watching the other day, an older one, where he
Mm-hmm.
was debating one of his buddies, and his buddy was in like commercial kind of advertisement and saying like, yes, every image that's produced is going to show that it has a some sort of editing to it, some sort of photo editor, Photoshop work done or photo editing work done to it, just because they're going to enhance the image to present to the people. But it's like we just want an actual photo of the earth or some sort. But it's like, why does everything in space have to be a perfect circle?
Mm,
And then
good
what they said
question.
with the James Webb, that James Webb says, oh, well, the James Webb images prove that the Big Bang Theory wasn't the case because everything is so perfect. So if everything collided together and exploded into all this, then where is all this space debris? Where is all these deformed planets or these deformed? Like, why is everything in such good shape? Because they were trying to give disclosure that everything's imperfect in space. So when we give you these images, they have to look good, right?
Yeah.
So we're giving you, because that's what they realized was they were producing all these, the James Webb was producing all these 4K images of these beautiful nebulas and beautiful, you know, star galaxies that were like perfectly planets. And they're like, well, wait a second. If this Big Bang theory is true, then where's it has to look like there was this Big Bang. Well, it doesn't. It looks all, it's all
Yeah.
perfect. But of course it's perfect because you drew it all. So
Yeah. When you blow something up, what is the chance that if you blow up a building that you have a perfect round something like a rock?
right.
Now,
Yeah. Oh, come on, dude.
yeah. So, uh,
Insane.
Adrian, and you also had something with your Samsung S22, right? The images.
Oh yeah.
Tell me.
So the big deal was when I had bought my S22 in 2022. They have the now. Let me tell you. So again, this is I'm looking at this as an editor per se, or someone who likes to dabble on the side for recreational purposes, video editing and software. So I understand like photo computation. Like a lot of people don't realize cell phones now they take that initial adjust while you're auto focusing
Mm-hmm.
to recreate the image because it's called photo computation.
Uh-huh.
So the photo is basically if you look behind your cell phone, you have a small camera lens, right? So like when you look at a big DSLR camera that you're going to buy, like a Canon or whatever, a Sony, the lenses are obviously like what 10 times bigger than our cell phone lenses,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So to actually make up the difference, you have to break down the pixel and do what they call pixel bending and photo computation. Well, Google's really good at it. So all the Google phones, I don't know if you guys have Google phones over where you guys are, but a lot of the Google
Got
phones
a
are really good.
Chinese one. A
Oh,
Chinese
there you go.
one.
So and those are good phones too, Hanwha, Huawei, or whatever, and all that stuff. So I actually like Chinese phones a lot. So I'm an Apple guy, Apple snob, but I like to mix it up here and there because I don't like to not know techno. I don't like just knowing all Mac and not PC, and then all PC and not Mac. So I do both.
Mhm.
Um, so basically, the S22 came out, and I was about that hype, man. Oh, you get these wonderful night shots, these moon photos. You can take the photo of the moon, and so I'm like, okay. So I'm out every night, and I'm in Texas now. The moon is bright and beautiful, man. I mean, like, and I'm telling you, one of the hardest things to do is to take a darn picture of the moon because of obviously it's illuminated, it's bright, so you're gonna need to know how to balance, maybe get like an ND filter or whatever to kind of.
Yeah.
It's such a bright shot, you can't just you can go out there, it's just gonna wash out and in your picture. But the S22, I get it, and I point at the moon, and then I kind of adjust it a little bit, the zoom, and then boom, it goes blurry, then it goes boom, and this nice picture of the moon, and I'm like, wow, showing my kids love it, all our friends,
Uh-huh.
oh, I'm showing off, and then this article comes out, and then Mr. Who's the Boss, who I listen to on YouTube, he's one of these tech guys I like. He had a thing about it too. And then it started catching the internet on fire because basically what happened was somebody kind of knew what was going on. And what they tried to do was they tried to take a picture of the moon on their computer and see how it would look as opposed to the picture they took in the sky. Because same thing, like, it's like, hey, people love moons. I have moon wallpapers and stuff like that. So
Uh-huh.
this person was like, well, I've been taking pictures of the moon with my S22, but let me try to recreate this photo on my computer. So what they did is during the day in their house or their home, they took a picture of their computer, but they realized it wouldn't focus. So they went with their S22 and they tried to get a picture on their laptop and realized it wouldn't focus on the moon. So they're like, well, what the heck's going on? So what they did is they actually cut off all the lights and make sure it was dark in the room.
Uh-huh.
And then they were able to take the photo and it recreated the moon photo on their phone. So they realized it was photo computation. It was actually the AI in the phone recreating the image of the moon on the fly. And they couldn't do it because during the day, it's like it's daytime, we can't do it. So it only would do it when they made the room dark on their computer. So it'll only recognize the
Oh,
moon on their computer when in a dark room. So then that went viral. And then sure enough, Samsung had to release a statement. Yes, we are recreating the image. It's still the moon, which I agree. I believe you're still taking a picture of the moon. It is just recreated by AI. And obviously, when you're
wow.
talking about distances and 30 miles, ain't no phone taking a picture of any object 238,000 miles according to their math, let alone, where we think it is 35 miles up or whatever. It's like it was definitely like an eye opener because you're like this whole time. And so then it got me thinking about so just knowing how the phones and now the cameras work, where again, there's a lot of photo computation, digital cameras and all this is a way they can create the algorithm, the AI, the images. So now when you go take pictures of the sun and the moon, you almost have to have the permission of the camera itself to allow you to do these things. It's a handoff, and we don't know that because we're just taking pictures. We're just snapping shots, and even on our phones, like if you do it now, you have to have your lighting has to be a certain way because if not, the algorithm won't read it. That's why sometimes you pull your phone out, take a picture, and it's absolutely blurry because the AI gets it's too much
Yes,
cache. You
yeah,
have to
yeah.
restart the app. So with
Huh.
all that going on, it won't recreate the image because it won't recreate the image. Right? That's all it's
Wow.
doing. If it was an actual
Crazy.
like an analog camera, you just look through the lens, point, and shoot, and it's going to shoot whatever it sees because that's what an analog should do. But
Yeah.
when you start getting in these, that's why whenever they say, hey man, hey Rob, why don't you come look at Saturn with me, brother? Come look at Jupiter and all these planets. Well, it's like, yeah, let's go look at it. Let's get this $5,000 telescope, plug it into our computer, and look at this hazy rendering of this planet on my computer, right?
Uh-huh.
Like that's literally what we're doing. So now we're actually relying on technology to tell us what we're seeing because we're not seeing what we're seeing. The computer's telling us what we're seeing in the sky. And that
Huh.
to me is just as dangerous because you got to understand optics. One of the things that I learned is like with flat earth and radar and sonar is that I do technology. I put in DAS systems, we put in fiber optic cable. So we understand how technology works,
Hmm.
right? Like it's line of sight. We literally install antennas to point at other antennas, and that pulls that signal in, that RF signal, and it disperses it through our antenna systems that have design as technology, and you have leaky coax and leaky antennas that radiate the signal, however you have it designed.
Hmm.
And it's not what we think it is because like they said, radar and sonar doesn't shoot off and around the globe. There's no there's no bending of these signals. Like they're saying, like if you're that NORAD and you're shooting out, this signal
Hmm.
to cover the skies, right? To make sure you're not you're not there's no Coriolis around the curve effect to those
Oh,
signals because they just shoot straight out. They literally they dissipate at the speed of light out,
yeah.
and they just go straight. And if they hit anything with like a cement structure barrier, you're going to lose the signal
Yeah. And the
because
same
that's
goes
how it
with
works.
sonar, right? It bounces off,
Yes.
and that's how you recognize some some density, like, oh, there's a mountain when you go down deep under, or there's a submarine and stuff like that. But it wouldn't work if you were on a globe,
You're
because
not,
then
yeah, you can't bend it.
because
You
then you
cannot
go
bend
out
it.
of space somewhere, because it goes out of
Yes.
the water and goes into whatever it is. I
And
just
I
think,
believe that's what they said. They're able to bounce signals off of the firmament back down.
yeah, I heard that story. Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes sense because if there is something crystal, it's basically what fiber optic cable is. Fiber optic cable is glass. So
Mhm.
if you have a light, right, you have a node and a node, right? You have a transmit receive TXRX. So one piece of a server switch, your internet service provider, your ISP is shooting out a signal and it's refracting and bouncing through this glass.
Mhm.
And that's how it reaches its destination. So if it is glass up there in the sky, then in theory you can reflect and refract off the glass. The problem is when it hits the glass, depending on the light itself, it will actually, if the glass is cracked, the
Mhm.
signal will dissipate into the cracks. So even if you did shoot it into the firmament, it has to be a solid structure to where it can bounce off and not absorb into and reflect into the glass, but
Uh-huh.
actually curve it back down into it. So that's how you would know, number one, if it is a solid top or not. And I've heard people say when they did the atom bombs or that they've documented that the ferment would actually crack and then self-repair.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that one too. Yeah, when they
So
took out
that's
some
pretty,
ice on
yes, in chunks.
Antarctica, that it was within a few seconds or few minutes, it was self healing again, and that comes back to our system and how nature basically works.
Right,
It's
right.
it's everything is within us, and it's crazy how we are like to be deceived. And even if you dig into some great topics, and you collect some knowledge, then everything can be easily debunked. Everything, of course.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, when you try to debunk the lies that they tell, you are a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a critical thinker. I just like to have some
Right.
answers to my questions. But when they can't provide me a decent answer, I go like, "Oh, wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I mean,
So please explain."
how deep are you with the Kennedy assassination? Like,
Well,
what do you know about that?
yeah. Well, I was listening to this brilliant guy who unfortunately died much too early, Jim Mars, and he breaks down completely with the dots connected to the dates, to the names, to the JFK assassination. And it's I don't think it's still on YouTube, because of course, you shouldn't find the truth. But it was like 2 or 3 hours that he's giving this reading. It was in Texas. He was a Texican guy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, Jim. Yeah, he's pretty. I know who. I think because what's his name? Listen to him, Jim.
Jim Marsh, and
Um,
I think it's double R.
yeah.
And he
Yes.
did
Yeah.
he did this great book about what's it called? I got it in Dutch. I think it's called right. Regeren vanuit het duister. It's something about darkness, about conspiracy theorists. He made that book, and then I digged into him more. And okay, stuff is falling out, but that's okay. I was digging into it more, and then I came across he made a documentary and a book about the JFK assassination. So yeah, there were a lot of things that are red flags. A lot of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, that's something because for me, that's like one of the biggest ones. You know, for me being obviously we weren't alive back then, but um, just seeing an American president, assassinated on TV, and it's just one of those moments. You're just like nobody's too big for this, but even getting behind the presidents and how they're all kind of related and all this stuff, but to see a president literally get his head blown off, and remind you, they didn't have that footage until it was the Zapruder film was actually transposed from 8 millimeter to actual, you know, the film they put on the Geraldo show, I guess back
Mm.
then, and that was the first time it was actually released because they had to transpose the film from 8 millimeter to what they had, and they didn't know if they could actually do it, and then actually retain the resolution to actually see what happened. But when it did happen, and they a couple years later they finally saw the skull, the shot that goes back, they still denied it. And then they come to find out that they said slide 316 at 313 and 313 at 16. So instead of the head going back, it went forward and then back. So they
Wow.
took the shot. So they went frame by frame and conveniently swapped the slides. And then when they brought it up and say, "Hey, we noticed that 313 is before or after 16," and Eisenhower said, "Oh, just leave it. You know, fine. It's done. Leave it." And then, of course, it makes it that one looks like okay, boom, forward and then back. And there's a Zapruder film shows it back and then forward
Wow.
because it was like if they switched the slides, they knew that it would remove the any secondary third gunman theory and leave it at the Lee Harvey Oswald one single shot, you know, or whatever
You should
to
be a
do him in.
brilliant shooter, right? To
Yeah,
have
I mean
that
the
shot.
guy, well, whoever shot the first shot into the lawn and missed everything. You could see it and hear it on the actual film where everybody ducks, even you know, and Kenny's looking around, but everybody ducks, and then that it goes shot one, everybody's looking, and then shot two, right, like just like that, and then the fatal shot because apparently he got the throat shot, head shot, and then the other wound that got the governor,
Huh.
and again, so they're like, how could you have one of the shots was Kennedy in the back, through Kennedy into the governor
Hmm.
Conley and into his arm and leg with one bullet, and that's where
No
they call
way.
the magic bullet. And there's like that's what every ballistics guy goes. No, it doesn't work that way. As
No
soon as
way.
that bullet hits something,
I've been on the
bullets
shooting
destroy it in
range.
shreds.
I've been shooting weapons when I had my permission and my license. That no way. You can bend that. You can bend the bullet when it's a 22 caliber will jump off on your rib case and stuff like that. But
It won't leave you though.
it
That's the
won't
thing. It
leave you.
won't.
No, no,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
that it's not that powerful to leave your body and go in again, even
And
if
then
it bounces off
again,
and ricochets. It's
yeah, then go in again. It's like
it's
it hit the governor twice. Kennedy, the governor twice.
oh
That's why it's the magic
man.
bullet, and it stayed in its casing.
And you know
It's
what's most wrapping my head around, even if these red flags like they took so long to get the film out and stuff like that, until maybe the 80s or maybe the 90s, when you see news, you saw this drawing like Iran and Iraq, and you see some drawing also some bombing, but you didn't see any footage of people dying, right? It was like
right.
the A team, everybody was shooting, but nobody died. Everybody was perfectly fine. How would you what goes into your mind to show the whole world the assassination of a president?
Well, my brother was saying he believes this. He goes, it's like the cows, you know. It's they show you. He's like they get you two ways. They basically they bring you through the stable thing where they end up, you know, they punch that thing through your brain, or they, you know,
Yeah.
back in the days to shoot you, but they would just condition you. They just condition you,
Hmm.
and then certain times they want to flex and they want to show you, you know, like keep you in line and keep you in check. And
Yeah.
they believe that he was one of the ones because he basically said he wanted to shatter the CIA and the FBI into 1,000 pieces and splinter them into 1,000 pieces was his word. That
Yeah.
he wanted to remove the corruption in the United States government, and that
Hmm.
we were not a war thirsty country, that we do not want war, that the average American, look up his speech, man, and that he
Yeah.
did that last year. It was amazing.
I'll put it in
Um,
a show description. I will find it. It's an amazing one.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
he had a
think a
really
few
good
months
one.
later he was killed. A few weeks
Yes,
later.
sir. Yeah, yeah. He had a he was it was a graduation. So I think it was like June of 63 or whatever it was. But it was one of his most pivotal speeches, and he just kind of talked about that. Like, we're not a nation of
Mm,
angry, like we're not a nation hunting bloodthirsty hunting for war. Like we are a nation looking for equality. They're looking like I'm like, this guy, man, it was a great speech. And then they said
mm,
behind the scenes, he had fired people, he had made changes. Because he wanted to remove the corruption in the government. He really really wanted world peace because he was the president that dealt with the Bay of Pigs. He dealt with some Cold War stuff, with Russia and potential nuclear warfare and all that. And
mm.
so he was dealing with that, and then he was dealing with uh uh I want to say some Vietnam, and then Africa had the same thing. Actually, even to the point where I think the guy he was dealing with Africa was assassinated. Um, that was
Oh,
one of the leaders that was assassinated when he was doing his peace talks with Africa. So I mean, he was in 3 years he was dealing with civil rights. I mean, he dealt with a lot, as the president of the United States, but he was saying the right things, and he kind of had. It seemed like he had the Trump effect, but even to the point where he actually was making the moves, because as soon as he was assassinated, we went into Vietnam, we went into war, we went into
mm.
um, back into the what we call the forever wars. Pretty much after he left, every other president was pretty much in a war. And you look at like I said, the 70s with Nixon, Vietnam, through Lyndon B. Johnson. You look at some of that pulling out of Vietnam with Jimmy Carter, but then going into the Reagan era where he had the war on drugs,
Mm.
and then Bush went into Iraq. Obviously, Bush won into Iraq. Bush two went into Iraq again, and then and which drug Clinton into it, just like Obama was drug into Bush's war. And then, because that's how they do it, you got the Republican going into war, the Democrat fixing it.
Yeah,
Republican
yeah.
going to war, and that
It's the
literally had
system.
Nixon. Nixon was in war. The Republican, the Democrat Carter had to, pull him out. It's the same thing, um, and that's why they call it the Forever War, which we've been in since, like I said, pretty much. You could even say World War II, but
Mm.
basically we because even when we left World War II, that's when we went into Germany. The and then the Russian spies, and then China got weird with China for a while in the 50s, and that's when we got into SRI. If you look up SRI in the 1950s, are getting into telepathic communication and all this like insane stuff that the Germans were trying to do prior to us getting them all here.
Mm.
And
Yeah. You got to make
and
a
that's what
war
I'm
to get the best people out and to
yeah,
get them in
and
your
we're
own
doing, and then
system.
we go to war for them doing this stuff to people, and then we bring them here to do the stuff to the people. It's just the only difference was we got them to consent to do it because we offered them money. Like, oh, you
Yeah.
just and if you look up the Evergreen experiments, if you get a chance, I believe it's Evergreen, Everwood or Evergreen. It might be Everwood,
Mm.
where they actually did the LSD testing on U.S. soldiers. Just put Evergreen or Everwood. It's just the testing of LSD on soldiers. It'll blow your mind. I mean, and this was something that they did, and it gets no press, no media coverage, where we actually tested narcotics, psychedelics on our guys
Oh, yeah.
in the 50s. I mean, like, and then offered them pensions, offered them, time
Yeah,
to
bribe.
early,
We
early
bribed
retire.
them
Yeah,
off.
basically, yeah. It's
I
like, oh,
saw once about LSD. They were prevented. I think it was in the English army in the UK, and it was really it's so cool. It's black and white. But what they do, they fed these guys like 3 times a day some kind of portion of LSD, and they wanted to watch what happens to them. So first of all, they're a little bit struggling about the thing that they have to do, but after a few hours, one was hugging a tree, the other one was lying in the grass, the other one, they said, "Come, you go to that way." They went completely different way. Amazing. But the funny thing is, and I want to know your take on this. I used quite some psychedelics, and I was talking to Raul with it from the Fermental podcast. And he was seeing also some paranormal things and stuff like that. But I told him the if you use LSD or DMT and stuff like that, you see some things that aren't there. You know, if you're sober, you don't see them, but with the substance in you, you see things that could be a normal cup of water that could go into a dragon. So, what if there are some frequencies on this earth that so you can see some dimensions better or more aware of than you are normal. So what I'm trying basically to say is when you are sober and in a way off, you see the things like we call reality. When you do some drugs like active drugs, you see different things in the same exact reality environment. So that's basically what I found very intriguing and very fascinating, how our mind is stripping us. But what if there are some circumstances in this world somewhere, like some, I think it's in Arizona in the desert, there are some frequencies going on with the Indian reservations and stuff like that. Um that they're that they can trigger a dimension, like they yeah, like they trigger a dimension, which we all have several dimensions within us and
Well, I
around
mean,
us.
that goes into kind of like I said, my beliefs on the paranormal, and if you take a psychedelic, you're opening yourself up to the unseen world per se. So
Mm,
you're opening yourself up to spirits, and you open yourself up to demonic activity, demon possession, paranormal experiences, which is paranormal is paralleling the normal. That's why it's
yeah,
paranormal. So
yeah.
anytime you take a psychedelic, you're opening yourself up to a paranormal. So it's almost like a gate, the key
Mm,
to the unseen things, right? And but that's the problem because we're not in the we're not in that phase of the journey per se,
hmm
because like Paul says in First Corinthians or Second Corinthians 4:6, he says, "Therefore we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day." So that's important. We don't lose heart because outwardly we know that the hourglass is tipped, right?
hmm
So eventually, he says, "For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all." Knowing, hey, we are going to a place, a better place. We are going to the Father's house. You know, the Bible says a new heaven and a new earth. So really, when you think about the firmament,
hmm
you know, when I read New Heaven, New Earth, I thought, okay, well, that ball globe is going to get blown up, and then um, the space that we know of, the galaxies and the Milky Ways and all that's going to get all blown up and brand new. Well, now that I have a different idea of a new heaven, new earth, that could mean the vault where the birds fly, that area the birds fly, which is heaven number one, or it could mean a new firmament and a new earth, because we know that he says, I've attached the firmament to the earth, like I fixed it together. So if I have a new heaven, new earth, and I'm not looking at the galaxies and the space, I'm just looking at the firmament and the earth as itself.
hmm
And he says, in 18 of 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 18, he says, "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen." So think about what he just said. We don't fix our eyes on what we see, but we fix our eyes on the unseen, which
ah,
is hard to do if you don't have an understanding. So, how do you fix your eyes on the unseen? Well, number one is educating yourself.
mhm.
You know, like you said, it's food. It's it's the things from the ground that yields itself, and it's the things that are unseen are in the Bible, where the Spirit of God, He speaks to you and tells you, and He gives you understanding where you're at peace. Like you talked about breathing. a lot of times they told me if you breathe wrong and you do your blood pressure check, your blood pressure is going to go up because when you're breathing, like take a deep breath, take another deep breath, and then
Yeah.
release. But what happens is you can take too big of a deep breath where you're actually telling your body you're in trouble, you're under duress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's important to line the breathing up with the mind, with the mentality to focus on the things that are like I am healed, I am blessed, I am strengthened. God, I'm a new creation in you. I'm a new creature. So he says, we fix our eyes on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal.
Mm.
So there are things in the spirit, and Paul saw in the spirit. He said, I saw the third, I saw the heavens, I saw, these guys understood there was a part of prayer and meditation. He says, I meditate, I think of the things which are good. He talks about, praying always, pray without ceasing.
Hmm.
Now it's like we don't just go and go and all that. We actually just declare the goodness of God, declare the favor of the Lord. Lord, you created all this for us. Like that's a big deal. Instead of like, oh, we're just a speck of dust in a trillion
Yeah.
galaxies. Like
We
that's
come from
not
the
intelligent.
monkeys.
We come from the moon. We are intelligently designed. The stuff that we talked about today is evidence of an intelligent design, not evidence of an accident. And a lot
I
of people
agree.
are afraid. Yeah, they and so like the other realm is there. You can look at. I'll give you the easiest one to understand. For God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son. So whoever perishes, whoever receives would not perish. Because think about what I just said. For God so loved the world, not the earth,
The
the
world.
realm,
Uh-huh.
the system, the earth. For God so loved the world, not the earth, the realm, the system of the world,
Huh.
not the realm, the system of the earth. Because see, when the earth is talked about in the Bible, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void.
Hmm.
So the earth is understood by God to just be the earth. And it's referred to as I found verses where earth and world in the same verse. Well, if it's two different, if it's the same thing, why would it be referred to twice in the same verse?
Yep.
Because it's not. One is a realm and one is a place. The earth
Mm.
is the place. The world is a realm. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And that's important to understand because we are in a realm of the world. And the Bible says that Satan right now is the prince of the air.
Hmm. Of the
So
ether.
he actually has control. What people don't realize, they go, why the lie? Well, the lie is because he is in control. And the Bible says the devil is a liar,
Hmm.
right? He is a deceiver. He is seeking as a lion, seeking whom he may devour.
Mm.
So, and those are things like even for me at being in church for so long, like or being in the ministry helping others, I have to remind myself, like, hey, you know what? You are the head. You are strong. You can do this. You need to take time out and meditate and think of the things that are good
Mm.
and have a better because at times our flesh looks at the natural things. Like Paul said, we look at the temporary things like, oh man, I got, this happened to me or this happened to me or I got money going on, or the economy, and all these. But the reality is, we are to fix our eyes upon the things that are eternal. Like, where are we going to be at in 1,000 years? We're going to be
Exactly.
in outer darkness, the lake of fire. Are we going to be rejoicing in the heavens? Are we going to unlock everything that He says He has for us in His Word,
Mm.
or are we going to seek after pagan gods and pagan and lust of flesh and the things that are temporary? Even Satan himself knows that his time is short, the Bible says. His
It is.
time is short.
It's he's playing on his playground right now. Um, I'm from the Netherlands, and I love the Vikings, and they are of course have the pagan gods like Odin, Freya, stuff like that. And I want to touch base a little bit on that because we still have weekdays, as I like to prefer, as strong days, and I don't have weekends, but I have strong ends, because words are, you should be very careful, because words are frequency, of course.
That's
We have,
right.
of course, Monday, which refers to the moon. We have Tuesday, which refers to Tyr, the god of war, which is Mars. We have Wednesday, which is Wodan, Odin, basically. Thursday, Thor, the god of lightning. Freya, the goddess of fraternity and stuff like that. And of course, Saturday from Saturn. Um, and it's very interesting for me, and I'm getting this information because I like to dug into stuff like that, like Christmas. Christmas is a pagan thing, just like Eastern is a fraternity, um, like resurrection, stuff like that. What is your what is your thought on that? Why would we still use pagan mythology and ideology in our normal worlds, um, when we want to touch base on the Bible?
Well, he's the deceiver.
Mm-hmm.
So if your focus is Christ and his birth, then of course you're going to put another another option out there to, okay, is it really about Christ's birth, or is it about gifts and money and red
Mm.
and green and colors of a guy in a red suit who happen to have the same characters in his name? How Satan and Santa have the same characters. You could just mismatch them and replace them, but and the pagan holiday, it was like one of the preachers said, he goes, Guinness Book of World Records, and I don't know if this was a few years old, but he, at the time he was preaching, he said the most expensive Christmas tree is in Dubai, or in
Mm-hmm.
the Amorites. I think it's $11 million was their tree. Now this is a country that obviously they're Muslim, right?
Yeah.
They're about Allah. So why would they celebrate Christmas? Well, easy. Christmas is not about Christ. If I say, Rob, Jesus is he is one of the saviors in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I say, Rob, he is the savior, there's a
Mm-hmm.
difference.
It's
Because
this.
I'm telling
Yeah.
you that every other culture is incorrect.
Mm.
And and what happens is Satan offers, he gives you options. He goes, look, you can have Christmas with Jesus, but you
Mm-hmm.
can have Christmas with Muhammad. You can have Christmas with Buddha. You can have, so then it becomes Christmas with another deity, and not celebrating who Christ is and what he did in the birth. Not to mention, we know he wasn't born in December, but
Yeah.
that's where we honor him, right? So like our church, I mean, we don't do it to necessarily say, like, and I don't say necessarily, but we do the days Easter, Christmas for the to win the lost, to share the
Mm.
love of Jesus.
Yeah.
Like our pastor didn't preach, this whole fluffy grace deal. He's just preaching like God came, died for you, that
Mm.
you can be changed, that you can choose life or death.
Yeah.
You can have a choice today. You can choose to live or die. That's something that God said in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and chapter 30. You can life and death. You can choose it. He says his word, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Like you said, frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Proverbs 18, 20, and 21. He talks about life and death being in the power of the tongue. James, the book of James, chapter 4, he says, what is the tongue? It's a rudder to the boat, meaning the
Mm.
boat is so big and grand, but yet it's moved by this little thing in the back.
Yeah,
That's how
exactly.
life that's how life is elevated, and that's how when you flow through life, because life is a flow, currency flows, blood flows, there's a flow in life. The Holy
Everything
Spirit
flows, and
flows,
everything,
everything flows.
yeah, goes
It's no
around.
different than when you're playing a gig. When it's not flowing, because there's no flow.
Yeah.
When it's flowing and there's a cadence and there's a vibe and you can feel it, you're able to do things you weren't able to do, because
Mm.
there's just a flow, there's just a different energy, and that's how powerful energy is. And God, again, he created these things, for our benefit, that we would have. Like, one of the biggest things when you read the Bible is he told Adam, he said, Rob, I put you in the garden. Now you name all the animals. You're
Mhm.
going to name them. He didn't say, I'm going to tell you that. He goes, no, you're going to name the animals. He said, Adam, go ahead and name the animals and go ahead and do this and do that and have dominion. And that's really what the enemy, what Satan, the deceiver, came in and took that from man, which is important because
Mm.
God then cursed the ground. He then cursed the woman, right? He cursed the serpent. If you read in Genesis chapter 2 and 3,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
chapter 3.
I got something on that, and it's not like and it's just how my mind works. After I explain something or want to ask you something, I want to touch base about how I think about my religion, like say, which is very close to to Jesus Christ, God, and some other stuff. But the apple is, yeah, is the thing that Eve ate and God forbid, and she was deceived by the snake, which was in the tree, and told her just to eat that fruit because God wouldn't notice and stuff like that. The thing I have with these, or the thing that wraps my head around, is the following: an apple is very healthy fruit, and it was from the tree of knowledge, right? And the serpent was already crawling because it's a snake. There's no snake with legs. So I think if you look at that story, we have to uh, think in a different way, um, because then eventually, when God came down the Garden of Eden and he saw that she was eating from the tree of knowledge, he said to the snake, "You will crawl for your entire life on the dust, and you will eat dust." But a snake always crawls. So what I want to try point out is
Well,
this.
that was, so hold on real quick. I don't want, don't hold your thought. Just hold it. Because this actually tied into some of the Nephilim and some of the aliens that they said that they saw, or that's been recorded throughout history, that were reptilian.
Mhm.
Because from our understanding is that the snake didn't always crawl, that this particular snake, or the snake, was cursed to crawl. So
Okay.
that this serpent wasn't yet crawling until he was cursed. So
Hmm.
until, yeah, so then that became, and then it was the seed of the serpent, right? So that's when you
Okay.
get into the seed of the serpent, the seed of the woman.
Because when I see a serpent, I see a snake. When I see a reptilian, like a lizard or something like that, it's not a snake. But what I and that's it, it's something that that keeps me going, and that's good because I bought the Bible like 2 or 3 months ago, like the King James version.
That's a
Uh,
good one, yeah.
yeah, yeah. The thing is, where I'm not totally convinced is, um, it's been written, and I will give you my take on the religion as I see it, okay? But everything that has been written, there is a purpose to write things down. And it's, of course, it's amazing how it lines up exactly now on this time of, although it was written thousands of years ago. What I think about um, God, Jesus Christ, and about, I have to say, my pagan gods. The pagan gods, like the weekdays and stuff like that, these are uh, the the earth, the basic things that we see, the soil, the air, and stuff like that. So for me, right, God is the creator of everything. It's in pagan, it's called Odin, but it's God. For me, God is the creator of everything. And we have five elements, not four. We have air, water, fire. Um, Help me out.
The
Yeah,
ether.
yeah. Ear is the fifth one, which they took out. I think because in Genesis says also that the Spirit of God is flowing through the and he created. He's flowing out of the water. I think that's the ether for me, basically thought.
Yeah, he was hovering over the face of the deep, is
Yes,
what it
he was
says. So
hovering
yeah,
over the
so
face. The Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the deep. So for me, everything that connects us to everything is ether. They took that out a while ago, but that's for me. For me, and I told it also on the firmamental. Um, for me, Jesus Christ is been copy paste to us. We are the universe and the world within ourselves. We create our own world. We create our own good and bad. For for me, and what we see around us is that what everything has been created by God. We are copy paste Jesus, and I like somehow more the mythology behind paganism because it was, I think, before there was Christianity, there was paganism. Well,
well, that's no, well, that's where you got to get into, and maybe you got to get into a couple books. The Genesis 6 conspiracy. Probably you should probably start there, and you learn about the
mhm,
Nephilim, and that's where the Bible talks about these were the men of renown. All the gods that you're speaking of actually came after the after well you talk it basically came right before Noah, and then some after, when you talk about like Nimrod and Gilgamesh and Orion, and actually that some of these gods are most likely Nimrod that you're talking about. And they took over Origin. I'll give you an example. So Nimrod also goes off Gilgamesh, Bel, Melquart, Andonis, Ninurta. I don't know some of these names. Orion, Dionysus, Bacchus, Eschaman, uh, Marduk,
mhm,
Mithra, Apollo, Ra, Osiris. So this is all most likely one guy who was Nimrod, who built the Tower of Babel. Um, and that was something that was another rabbit hole I went down last year, where they had all these towers, mini Tower of Babels, like the Mayan temples and all these sacrificial areas throughout the earth, right? So
mhm,
think of flat Earth, and then where all these temples are randomly placed throughout the earth, where the Bible says God scattered man, and they went into Nephilim worship. So they
mhm,
went into this pagan god worship, Orion and all. That's how you get all these different names, because then when they went around the world, they set up all these altars to sacrifice their women, their kids, and then hopefully be visited by these gods, by these entities that were from above, that
mhm,
were again called the Nephilim, the fallen ones. And they believe that some people believe these reptilian people are demonic spirits that are still in hell now, that
mhm,
are basically overseers down there, and they oversee that place, or they're the ones that are kind of down in that in what they call Sheol or whatever.
mhm,
But back to what we're talking about is, um, for the understanding of the Word of God, was Jesus was one of the most talked about figures to walk into history.
mhm,
He was the only person that history looked at to come, right? Like that was the only one. And of course there were Egyptian versions of Jesus. There were other, because it's going to get, it's, it's going to copy the writings of the Pentateuch, the Torah, and all that,
yeah,
and follow through. And what you're going to read here in chapter 4 of your Bible is that Cain. So you know the story of Cain and Abel.
Cain
So
and Abel,
Adam, Eve,
yeah,
Cain and Abel, right? It says so. Cain actually, if you read through it, Cain built cities. He was the builder of cities, and that's just in from Genesis chapter 4 to 6.
mhm,
That in that time of him and his brother killing Abel, and then his brother Seth being born, he was the one who was building cities. And God created the animals and other, we believe, other beings in
mhm,
that time as well. Now, for sure, the animals it talks about in chapter 2 and 3, where he said, "From the dust he created the animals." And then he says, obviously he says, "Let us make man in our image," and that's the heavenly host. And then he talks about it when she bit the apple. He said, "Now they'll be like the gods," right? So the
Yeah.
idea was whoever these beings. So when you learn Greek and Hebrew, gods was used as the Ben Ha Elohim, which was multiple translations of that, which could mean son of God. Elohim actually means God. So you had to pick which one you thought was the depiction of it,
Hmm.
because angels were also looked at as Elohim because they were considered the sons of God.
Hmm.
So again, there's definitely a lot to unfold in the writings, and like Jordan Peterson said, what got him thinking about Christianity and faith in Christ was the fact that the origins of words and the meanings came, in the ancient writings, in the Bible, in the canonized text. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Septuagint, which was another form of text that was not in the sola scriptura as what we have now, the 66 books. That's, everybody's controversial about that too,
Hmm.
because in the Catholic Bible there's actually, I think, 72 or something like that. And
Yep.
then there's the book of Enoch and all this stuff. But again, those were considered. There's the Maccabee books, where some people say the Maccabees are a part of the Bible. They should be. But the idea was that the 66 were the inspired word of God without flaw. It was the flaws in some of the writings that some of they had problems with, over the years, and just piecing together the actual scrolls and things of that nature.
Mm.
But the canonized texts are the most, basically the closest account without flaw. So like if you go in the book of Enoch, there's like 90, or there's a lot of chapters in the book of Enoch. And then like I said, the Septuagint has a lot of books in the Septuagint, and then that's going to have some of the more controversial. But then they talk more about the giants and the Nephilim, and more about other things, where that's where it kind of gets you can kind of get in some rabbit holes too. But
Mm.
I do know that for me as a man of faith, that Jesus being one of the most looked about, you know, uh, persons to come throughout history, and then to come, and then to divide, and to be who he was, where the Pharisees, the religious elite, said no, 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 this can't be him, and to where he, his death and resurrection. I mean, it's very controversial because, number one, he said he regained the keys. He was the sacrificial lamb, right?
Mm.
He was the when we say like we're paid in full. So what was to happen was Satan received authority in the garden, which you read, right? Adam was cursed to ground. Where in Jesus he came back, he says, to get the keys of death and life. And now that's why Rob has authority to pray to the unseen and
Mm.
have results. But that's why the devil, Satan, has to confuse us. He has to deceive us,
Deceive.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
if you know you're a prince, he says, if Jesus said, if you see me, you've seen the Father. He says, I go to the right hand of the Father for you as an advocate.
Mhm.
I go to the right hand of the Father to give you strength and to give you power. So if he's at the right hand of the Father for us, meaning that all the heavenly hosts, Jesus Christ, then his Holy Spirit is with us and inside of us. Like you said, the same spirit that's hovering over the deep is inside of you, is inside
Mm.
of me.
Mm.
And that's why the deception has to start with our food, with our skies, with our government, with our leaders, with the world stage of the controllers. And because that's why he's the prince of the air, because he has to control the north, east, west, and south. If he
Mhm.
controls the news, right, he controls the propaganda, he controls your thought, and he conditions you, then he knows you will not understand what's inside of you, who's inside of you, who
Exactly.
you are in Jesus. And that's really that's why we get hooked on drugs. That's why we look for joy and happiness in all the wrong places. That's why
Mm.
we don't trust the voice of the Lord. No, do this, no, do that. Oh, you should. And you go, man, I knew I should have did it. Something just wasn't right, and I knew to do that, and I did it I didn't do it, or I did it anyway, and I knew not to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
because the Holy Spirit is inside of us, and that's something because of the gift of Christ and what He's done. Because when He came and died, they call it the dispensational period of Christ
Hmm.
is where we're in now, where the Spirit of God only in the Old Testament He was only showing up when He so desired or when the Lord told Him to show up. Now we're in the dispensational of grace. Jesus died and was raised. He left and he said, Rob, I send you a helper. I send you a peace. And we call him the Prince of Peace. I send you the peace. I send you the helper, the Holy Spirit. And it's our job to walk with the Holy Spirit, talk with him, and not grieve him. Paul says in his word, do not grieve the Spirit. Do not
Mm,
grieve the Holy Spirit.
mm,
Because we can, we lie, we cheat on our time, we cheat on and then we grieve him if we're
mm.
not charitable. Jesus said in his word, if you have a party, don't invite all the people that are going to give you gifts, invite people who need help. Right. I was telling my wife
Yeah.
that I was like, man, I feel so bad because so many times I want to invite people, not because necessarily they're going to give good gifts, but I just want to invite good people. But he
Hmm.
said, invite the low of the lows. Like what person, this is the only Christianity where you don't work your way to heaven. It's
Mm,
grace. You
mm.
can't, there's nothing, you're not even right, you're not righteous enough. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing I can do. I'm saved by grace. Now we can sow into, because there's a law, it's called sowing and reaping. He says if you sow a seed, you will reap a harvest. And guess who uses that law? The world, Bill Gates, all these people
Mm.
who invest billions of dollars because they know, guess what? They're going to reap tax benefits. They're
Yeah.
going to reap they're going to reap even favor. They're going to reap doors being opened. And they just use the same laws and principles that are in the Bible. What a man sow shall he also reap. And he
Mm.
says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. If they want to speak life, these people aren't stupid. You can look up The Secret with Oprah and all these people that are doing The Secret. All
Mm.
they're using is biblical law. He says it's not what's in the belly that defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth that
Mm.
defiles us. It's what we say, oh man, I'll never do it. I'm just too dumb. I'm just too lazy. And then you charge, the ether, you charge,
You charge
the
a
world
negative.
around you, the energy. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
because that's the system that we're in. And if you understand, and I believe when it said when Adam walked with God, I'm sure you read it in Genesis chapter 1 in the cool of the day, he was explaining to him, he was downloading information, blueprints, how to navigate around the world, and then how to build things and how to have dominion. Because how did Cain build cities if he didn't know anything?
Yeah,
Somebody
exactly.
showed him something,
No,
right?
but
If
I think if you are aware that there's a creator where you can talk to, no matter what language or what religion you have a creator always in whatever religion that you are. If you,
and that's the other thing too. Not to cut you off, Rob, but let me be clear too: is that God, I'm not saying God is in one religion either, and I think that is something to your point. Like you can get wrapped up in thinking like, oh, if I don't come down this exact road, then I can't get to Christ. But at the same time, we look at the thief and the murderer on the cross, and they get one gets saved and gets into paradise. And
Mhm.
they didn't say like, "Oh, I'm a Pharisee. Oh, I belong to this church or this. I belong to the Seventh Day Adventist, or I believe in Zeus and all." They didn't. He didn't say that. He just said, "Will you remember me?" And Jesus said, "Yes, I will remember you. And from this day on, you'll be with me in paradise." He didn't
Mm.
ask, and that's to your point. Like, just call out to the Lord. Lord,
Yeah.
if you're real, show me. Now, again, if you're open yourselves up to aliens and pharmaceuticals and psychedelics, you might open yourself up and you might get shown an angel of light that is actually a wolf in sheep's clothing,
Mm.
because the word tells us that too. Paul warns us. Jesus literally, look it up in Matthew 24. He says there will be wolves in sheep's clothing, and that's what we see
Mm.
now. Bill Gates, oh, I'm going to make your food better. I'm going to
Yeah, I
make
totally
your I'm going
agree.
to
I totally
yeah,
agree
I'm
with
going to
that. The
yeah, and
the the
that's
thing is with the psychedelics that I took brought me closer to God, closer to the creation of what we are and what this world is, because I was filled with love and answers questions that I had were been answered. And as said, some of them psychedelic, like mushrooms, for example, one of the oldest, well, oldest organism in the world that connects miles and millions of miles. Um, it gives you insights, and you shouldn't. It's same with scripture. It's same with religion. It's same with the belief system that you are in. You shouldn't mocker it. You shouldn't treat it bad. You should embrace it and hug it like it's. What I always say is, when I walk in nature, I see creation of God. I see. Um, and when I look at nature with love, like I see a beautiful woman and I say, wow, that's beautiful woman. And I look at these eyes to people, uh, to the world, basically, with this lovely feeling. Then I'm all done. I'm all with the Holy Spirit, with God around me, and with Jesus Christ in me, which he has been. The story about Jesus is not about a man who went through all these awesome things without any struggle. He was beaten down. He's been spitted out, like say, and he came back again. And eventually he had people around him who believed in him. And I think that's also the copy paste of us. When we are very aware of what we are, what we do, and we do it with love and with a positive mindset, we create people around us that support us and that believe in us. And I think, but that's my basically touch on the story. And like I said, of course, the Bible is a holy book. I know that the pagans do not have a holy book. They have something like the Indians did and the Aboriginals did. They spread it out through the elderly and through the ancestors. They gave it, the basic stories of life and how life is been there. Um, and the funny thing is, as you mentioned, like Baal, Moloch, and all these well uh, evil entities, they 100% are created after the Bible to deceive. But paganism doesn't have any bad evil things in it. They just say, okay, Thor is from the heavens. Of course, they made people believe when there is when lightning comes, be careful what the gods say, stuff like that. A belief system that's based on. But the thing is, it's very worldly, like say, the soil. They I think they were people that were most close to nature. Um, the thing is, when you most close to nature, you are most close to God, and if you're most close to God and nature, you're most through your truly self, which is your Jesus Christ, which is the copy paste of God. For me, for my perception. And of course, it's still a journey that I'm searching for answers, and I'm searching for more wisdom about more stuff. Um, but the thing is, when I put myself in a narrative or in a box, then I can go out of the box. You know what I mean? That it's something that holds me down for looking at other sides. What I want to do with myself is open up for everything, and I do not agree with everything, and I do not love everything. And some things I can resonate with, and some things I do not resonate with. But I think if you're truly loved by yourself, first of all, that you love yourself, then you can spread out the word, which is the word of God, in whatever language and whatever religion you speak, and you will have good on your path. And of course, it will be sometimes a struggle, because in every religion, every Messiah, every Jesus, every Buddha has been through some struggles, because without struggles you can't see anything. You can't learn a lesson. Without darkness you don't see the light, for my perspective about. But I love this conversation because, you know, the thing is, we need, as a human being in whatever community you are, you need to have a dialogue without um, without saying, "Oh no, you're completely wrong." You know what I mean? You have to need a dialogue
Yeah.
and you have to need a conversation to get knowledge from each other, like we have with the health thing, about the technology, about the green screen, the CGI stuff like that. When you talk about it, you learn so much from other people, and that what makes um, your own treasury of knowledge and wisdom more, so you can break open some change and chains, uh,
Ah,
because we have to. And I totally agree with you. We have to be aware what and how they are deceiving us, because no matter what, they try to get away from nature, from God, from Jesus Christ, whatever, because they want to make money out of our system that is fault from the beginning, with the food that they put in, with the with babies that have been born perfectly, and they circumcise, they put vaccines in it and stuff like
yeah,
that.
shoot them up. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
and that's kind of I think where where I'm at too. Just like I said, just knowing like okay, looking at this the creation, the account in Genesis, and piecing that together, and just reading the Word of God and the truths, and a lot of fallible men, from Noah and his drunkenness to Abraham and lying about his wife and other things, and Samson and David. I mean, throughout Scripture you see man doing it their way and struggling, but still the truths of God, and then some hidden gems in there. And, just knowing like if that's the direction of creationism and in culture, and even you look at the dream from Daniel in chapter 4 and the book of Daniel, and he talked about the end times, and he talked about the statue and the end of the statue. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story, but the statue's feet was clay and iron, and he said that would be the last kingdom, is
hmm,
clay and iron. And for a lot of people who are scholars now are starting to realize clay and iron is dust you are, dust you shall return. Because how do we make clay? Well, we make it off out of the minerals, the dust, and
hmm,
we mud and all that, right? And what is iron? Well, what could be iron? Well, let me see, machine. So the last kingdom is man and machine. And
hmm,
it lines up with the book of Daniel when he talks about travel would increase. And now we can go across the pond or whatever. We can travel like never before in the last
hmm,
100. Like these are the signs it talks about in the book of Timothy. And he says, in the end, men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, lovers of pleasure. They will call good evil and evil good. And we are
hmm.
watching that before us. And you read Revelations and the mark and Babylon. And there's so many things that prophetically line up and historically line up that it's like, it's just mind blowing. So that's why, like, for me, I choose to, hey, if that's the book that's closest to what we're seeing, feeling, and understanding,
Hmm.
because again, like it, frequency, music, sound, and we understand that that's God's language, right?
Yeah,
Worship,
yeah.
praise, sound. I mean, they talked about marching around Jericho and the walls of Jericho, and really creating a loud shout, and the walls fell, and creating a loud shout, and the armies left, because spiritually, how you sound, how you feel, how you vibe can conquer darkness. Can that light that you were talking about, we talk about, can conquer darkness, through the joy of the Lord, through the power of the Holy Spirit, through the peace of God. Just having some of the scariest people just have peace, because you're like, no way you should have nerves of steel, but that's how powerful faith is. It's like, man, you're gonna go walk on that line or go hang out. It's like I see guys doing windows on skyscrapers. I'm like, man, that is faith right there. They have faith that
Yeah.
those wires and cables will not break, their harnesses will work, that the wind is not, like that's faith right there. That's what God
Hmm.
has called us to, is a part of the walk and journey, is have faith in one another, have faith in your common brother, that they would do you right, not do you wrong. And that's where you think about like the evil one and things going on. You're like, man, I want to be a positive force in this world, in this life. And like I said, learning about how he looks at the world and the earth and terminologies, and then how you, like you said, words matter. And that's why, like, now when I read the Bible, I'm really looking at every word and really just trying to get understanding and revelation. And then not just that, because I watch other things, I hear other things, and I want to review the words that I'm hearing and
Mhm.
really understand. And like I said, even in food and health, there's people who are going to be looking for health this next season of their life. And it's like, read the ingredients. We always tell people, read ingredients. If it has more than, if you're drinking milk and it says milk and organic, great. If it says milk and
Stanisize,
diglycerides, yeah,
yeah,
diglycerides and all this
E17,
other,
E214. Well, what
yeah,
is it?
like,
Look it up.
yeah, like stay away from that stuff. Stay away from, try to eat whole foods, nature that's found in food, and or food that's found in nature. And
Hmm.
that's why, like I said, that's what made our journey. That's why we had success, and we continue to, even if we don't eat the greatest all the time, we still eat clean. We buy clean ingredients for our
Hmm.
home. We buy organic eggs. We still get Butcher Box where they ship grass-fed beef, grass-finished products.
Hmm.
So we still do all Kerrygold butter, all Himalayan salt, like all the little things,
But
removing sodas from the
it's in the
house and
little
stuff like
things
that.
to make a big difference, to make a big step. Whatever you
Yeah,
do, whatever goal you have, if you can't make the little steps, you can't achieve a big step. That's what you
yeah.
said exactly. What my perception is when you're listening to this podcast and you think, oh my God, my food is totally messed up, I want to start. You just can't start like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be 100% organic. That would be probably disastrous for your body, because it's going to react, right? But if you start with the extra virgin oil, coconuts, nuts, basically the things that are fruit, that comes from the land that has sun in it. I was looking at some vitamins, and what about the B12 vitamins? Because normally it's come from sunlight, right? So what I find out is that they prepare these vitamins and they uh, charge it with UV. So with basically with sunlight that's artificial to get your sunlight in. But even now, of course, there are darker days and the sun isn't that much up, and it isn't radiating that much as in the summer, but you still can go out for a walk, take some deep breaths, so get some real good oxygen in it, and basically have some sunlight. If you go to where the people are going skiing and stuff like that, they're sitting there on the porch, they have a nice glue wine and stuff like that, and they're sunbathing, although there's snow. So there is some sun, but because the days are going to get shorter, we go out to the office when it's dark. We sit in the office where there's this not good some light, and we go back when it's dark. And but when we take the time to walk in the weekend, like the Saturday and Sunday, and not be sitting down and have the bread and play, but take a hike and do something for ourselves, then you're closer to that. What I think is the basic religion, is getting close to God and see what He made for us, like the leaves in the grass, the fruit, how the seasons work, the fresh air that you're going to get, as much as you're going to get now. It's all around us, but we have to see it, just like we have to see the deceiving of the devil or Satan or whatever he is called.
Well, I think that's a good point, because I think a lot of the deception is just the busyfiedness of ourselves, of our lives. We're busyfied. We're busy. So instead of eating a good lunch and just taking a 20-minute walk and bringing your lunch, those are little, like you said, you can bring two hard boiled eggs and an avocado, and eat that in 3 or 4 minutes, and then go take a quick 15-minute walk
Hmm.
outside at lunch and get your sun. and reflect on the day, how it's going and how it's going to get better and how you're going to do better. And because a lot of times we look at our situation and we look out instead of looking in,
Yep.
and look at like, how can we be better? Because when we're better, you get blessed, because it goes back to what we talked about. You reap what you sow. You sow a seed of excellence, a door is going to open up for you. It may not be for that company, it may not be for that boss, or it may be for that company, it may be for that boss.
Mm.
But something good is going to happen because you're sowing the seed of excellence, and people like that and they see that and they will honor that. And it's like, it starts inside. It starts with coming 5 extra minutes earlier, doing things that are healthy, because those are things that I have to work on and get better at. And I've been doing. And I've
Mm.
noticed a difference. Like, wow, it's better when you're not showing up when you're supposed to show up, but when you're just actually a little earlier, because then you're more like, okay, instead of, okay, I run into a snowball, a fire, I'm running in with like a peace of mind. Like, no, it's not that bad. It's going to be better, or I know what I'm getting into. So let me prepare mentally. So that way, when I go into that, I'm already ready to go. I'm not like, oh, I got to catch up, or oh, I got to deal with this
Mm.
again. It's like, no, no, let me mentally prepare, because I know you did a lot of you said in your other podcast that you had a lot of jobs where you sold things a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And see, me, I hated those jobs. Like, I didn't like people like that, to talk
Yeah,
business
yeah, I
or
know what you
try
mean.
to sell them. It's hard. It's hard, right? You like, you got to be bubbly, or you got to try to make them feel good, and then, but I need your money because I got to live, and I got to sell
Yeah.
you something to do that, and it's like, so what was like your favorite selling job, from cars or anything like that? Just real quick, because I know we're kind of
Oh, good
getting there.
question. First of all, I rolled into it. I love to communicate with
Uh,
people, so that's one of the basic things that a salesman needs to do. You have to dig into a lot of people, a lot of layers of people, like I said. I love to talk. I love coffee, so that's two basically things that you're doing as a
yes, sir.
salesman. All right. So yeah. Um, well, the thing is, I don't like salesmen either, because if I want to purchase a product, I probably will know what I'm gonna purchase, and I'm not going like totally dumb into guitar stores. I want to buy a guitar. Oh, why? Well, because I want to play guitar. So give me a guitar. You will probably get one. You know what I mean? So you dig in, like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I should get an acoustic guitar. Or, so you have some basic knowledge. So coming to your question, um, I think the most satisfying job was as a salesman for motorcycles, because I
Mm,
drive a motorcycle myself, so I knew that I was giving these guys and girls something that it's really, it's living on the edge, and it's fresh air. It's this
right.
feeling of acceleration, stuff like that. And um, because I know I was selling something good. The other things that I sold were basically stuff that you could need or you shouldn't need. So there's another perception about that. So if you know the trick, you can sell, that's okay. But there was no good feeling for me about that. I rolled
Right.
in because my back was broke. Well, I had two, from my spine, two things were lined up, because I'm officially,
Um,
I was uh, doing carpets and stuff like that. So
mm,
renovate houses and stuff like that. And then I
right.
got a little accident. So my spine was basically the spine with two layers on each side. So I had to do something different, and I rolled into the sales thing. So it's psychology, which I like, but I really love people to communicate with. So also the people that I contacted, like the last 10, 15, 20 years, I can call them right now and they would say, hey man, if you're in a neighborhood, come by, have a coffee, because of me. I'm not the product, I'm just the one. I'm just Rob. I'm selling a product, but they have a good
Right.
feeling about me. That's why I sell the product. And a lot of
Right.
salesmen have these tricks and these stuff, yeah, but you need it, because if this is going to break down, you're going to need this one, and this one is cheaper than that one. Wow, I don't need it, So basically, well, coming back to your question, basically, I sold myself
Right.
to sell a product, right?
Right. That's kind
Because
of what I
if you're
figured. I
not
was like, it's got to
resonating
be
with
hard.
me, and you think, oh man, I got tattoos and stuff like that. Oh, that's not my kind of stuff. And he comes around with this
Right.
bike. I'm not gonna buy anything from him.
That's right.
So yeah. So basically, I sold my enthusiasm and stuff like that, and knowledge too.
Yeah. No, that was good because that's something like because ultimately we're all selling something, and yeah, that's why I even talked about selling your soul right to the devil or these entertainers, um, and you don't have to do it for necessarily riches and fame. You can do it just to make a living. Like I'm just selling what I'm selling. And that goes back to taking advantage of and because when I got into real estate and taxes, it was like people like to cheat on taxes, and then people like to shop taxes, and then real estate is like it's a whole nother beast. It's
Mm.
crazy. But when I got into finances, coming to Texas, I just realized it's hard to make a living with a good conscience when you're relying on people in business. Like my business is people,
Mhm.
and when you're selling something, your business is people. Like you're not making. If I'm not making a commission because I'm not selling, or if I'm not selling, I'm not making a living, then my business is people because I got to sell.
Yeah.
And what I've done for so long was network wiring communications. I mean, almost 30 years in the business, and it's second nature. It's a trade. So you just go to your trade, you find the work, and you go. But selling is very, very difficult, and because you got to have a connection. But if you sell with the wrong intentions, you become a deceiver.
Mm.
And I felt it intriguing when you were talking about your different sales jobs. And I'm going to ask Rob, how do you like selling? What do you like to sell? Because it's not like we do these things intentionally. Because even as a contractor, I'm selling. I had a client call me the other day because she goes, "Hey, we need to replace the line. You guys did some work, but it's not working for us. We need to make some changes, but we just need you to do this so we can do that." And I'm like, wait a second, red flags, man. What are you talking about? What's going on? Did we not do a good job? Are you not satisfied? I need to know these things so we don't repeat them.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, we
Exactly.
don't we don't sell you something you don't need, or if there's something down the road, we can get a gotcha, a catch all, we can catch it up front. We can deliver a better product on the back end. So next time you do work, you have us in mind, and I've always found that to be a reason why people go back to you because they're like, well, if you're going to offer wisdom and education, or at least attempt to steer me down the right path, like I said, like when you go into the guitar store, like you were saying, he could say, what are you doing? Oh, I like the Les Pauls. Well, there's a difference if you get the Tecate, there's limited Les Pauls, LTDs or whatever, and
Mhm.
there's Epiphone Les Pauls, there's Gibson.
What's your
Let's just get you
budget?
the Gibson. Let's
What's your
get you a
budget?
Gibson custom shop. Yeah. Yeah. What,
Yeah,
how much you want to spend? We'll get you a
that's the
Gibson.
first thing they do. That they ask, well,
Yeah.
"What's your budget?" So I know a little bit to
Yeah.
dig into. Yeah, what's
Yeah,
your purpose?
exactly.
What's your purpose? Are you a
Yes.
player already? These are the questions that the real salesman would ask. Okay, well, what kind of bands do you like? What kind of music do you dig into?
Mm.
Do you play already some instrument? Are you familiar with the guitar? But a salesman with no heart would try to sell something that's good for his boss. A
Right.
salesman with a good heart, with the good questions, will sell something that you can go. You can look at the guitar in 10 years and say, "Wow, man, that was a
Best
great
purchase,
guy."
right?
But that's the thing. That's what we're trying to
Yeah.
basically telling here. You have to connect with people and give them what they want, and
Right.
sometimes you have to give them what they need, but they decide what they need and what they want. You just have to
Right.
listen.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
thing that
Yeah, that's where I think too, like something too is like being a better listener, overall, it helps you be a better communicator. And that's why I've always I got it a lot. I learned a lot better when I was in business younger, but my personal life, I made bad purchases just because I got ahead of myself. got ahead of God. I like I work hard, so I need something or I want something, and then you make a purchase that, and that's I think ultimately that's how I end up selling my translucent cherry classic because I like the color, but I'm a T burst guy. I like burst, you know, and
Hmm.
I ended up getting the translucent cherry, but it's not a burst guitar. So the maple top, the top is nice, but it's a cherry top and not a burst top where you get your flames and you get, you know. So I didn't at the time. I just kind of bought it instead of really doing my just really. I originally bought a burst, and then I was like, my Les Paul Epiphone was a burst, but when I had a chance to get the Gibson, I was like, well, let me get either a iced tea or a nice tea burst, or I was thinking like, well, maybe if I don't do the tea burst, maybe I'll do a lemon burst. And then I was like, well, maybe. So I got all undecided, and I ended up. Then I was like, well, the price point, maybe I'll just get this classic. But then I didn't even think about like Reverb.com or like the Guitar Center used because I've seen some beautiful guitars. Obviously, you got to worry about damage or maybe they broke the headstock or something. But
Mm.
most part, if it's at a Guitar Center or something, you should be okay. If it's on Reverb, that might be questionable or eBay or something, but you know, you can try to get your money back. But I mean, definitely when you're making like $1,000, $2,000 purchases, you know, it's good to have someone assist you who's
Mm.
trying to not just sell you a name, but just, you know, sell you something that you can have for a long time. Because when I bought it and I got my Gibson, I was like, oh, I love this guitar. I like the red, but I was like, it's not really what it's what I wanted, but not really, you know. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
kind of knew, yeah, and I kind of knew I wasn't gonna have it forever. And then, you know, so now I'm learning more. Now I'm learning more about the headstocks and um some like the Kalamazoo, the book style, you know, they like that open book and the wider ones where they on Gibson they add the extra wood on the side. So it's
Hmm.
actually flamed out a little bit more than normal, like little bat ears almost that they add on. And these are a lot of things I didn't learn, but then at the time I wasn't looking at like luthier work and how to make your guitar, you know, the intonation sound good and all that. But then when it was like, oh, you could spend $200-300 to have a luthier look at it. I'm like, you know what? I want to learn to do luthier work. So why don't I start off on a cheaper guitar that I
Uh-huh.
can file frets down? I can do, some check the pots and check the polarities and do some of the gauge measurements myself and kind of tinker with it to when I do get a nice guitar, I can actually, look at it, either know what's wrong and take somebody because the other thing was you don't always want to travel with like a $2,000 guitar. It's like
No,
that's
no.
$2,100, $3,000 guitar. You're like, oh man, it's like I got to keep my one eye on my kid, the other eye on my other kid. The guitar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so,
exactly, exactly. You will be
so like,
paranoid for all the time.
yeah. Oh my, it's the worst. It's the worst, man. You're like, all right, let's go out to eat. I'm like, do I drop my guitar off at the house first, or do I
Yeah.
leave it in the car? Like, I don't know. I'm like, so that's a whole nother thing too. Like little things, you think about, and once you kind of have these guys, and because I had that, and I had my Taylor. My Taylor was kind of expensive too, but so anyway, yeah, now it's like now I'm making purchases. I do a lot more research when I make moves instead of like before, just making the moves and stuff. And that's why I like my Epiphone I got, because now I got Gibson burst buckers in my bridge and neck pickup. So I got great pickups, Gibson USA pickups on an Epiphone, a China guitar, and I have some other Gibson parts. It has deluxe tuners, Epiphone deluxe tuners, but I mean they're pretty good, and
Mm.
so I'm very happy now, and then I went and checked different guitars and stuff. But I think the other thing about sales, like I've went in like Best Buy and other stores, and you ask the sales guy something, an associate, and then they don't know what they're even looking at, and you're like, oh, that's a bummer, because then you're kind
Yep.
of turned off a little bit, But so anyway, all right, no, I was good. Everything's been good, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for your time, and we scheduled a little bit because I got some difficulties about yesterday evening, as I told you, and I had some technical difficulties when we pinpointed on a quarter to three. It's it's 20 to 7 now, 24/7.
I know, right?
So yeah, time is something that's yeah, as you said before, and I got this opinion about time. You can double and triple everything in life except your time.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't have any alarm clocks or stuff like that. I know that there's a dimension where my boss asked me like tomorrow 8 o'clock. I know what dimension he means, so that's my point of view about time, and the rest is just like I just do the things that I do, and I love to talk to people like you, Adrian. And thanks for connecting. I think Snake Turbanhead was connecting to us with us, right?
Yeah, I gotta see. I was seeing you on his he was on your thing, right? One of your episodes?
Yeah.
Or yeah, and I gotta follow up on that one. I haven't got a chance to listen to those yet, but I'm gonna try to get it in this week.
Well, it was a great conversation. I have 10 very fast questions, and some of these are very easy, and some of them are a little bit, well, a little bit difficult. But to wrap it up, and like I said, thank you for your time and your energy to hop on this podcast. It will be awesome. People are going to learn a lot about food, about CGI, about biblical stuff, and how basically about life. We talked about guitars and stuff like that. So here it comes. 10 questions for my guests. What's your favorite color, Adrian?
Yellow. It's always
Yellow.
been one of my favorite colors. Yellow. Gold,
Okay.
yeah, like a yellow. See the Warriors, gold and yellow right behind me. See that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool.
my
Your
my
favorite
microfiber
oh, that's a fiber
microfiber cloth.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yellow. Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
just like gold, you know.
So you like the song from the Beatles, We All Live in Yellow Submarine?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What's your favorite music?
That's a good one, man, because I'm like you, man. I rock out with Elvis, James Brown, Prince, Michael Jackson, all the way to uh Leonard Skinner, Ozzy. I mean, I'm kind of, if I had to pick one, I would say I love contemporary Christian right now. That's kind of where it's my home base. But I actually just love music. I
Yeah,
love because
wow.
it yeah,
Very hard question. It's a very hard
that's
question,
the
especially
hardest.
when you
That is
like
a
music.
hard one.
Yeah, maybe
Because I mean, you should say, if you set it up with a scene, if there's certain scene, like if it's a basketball movie, it's like give me some hip hop. If
uh-huh.
it's Take My Breath Away and Top Gun. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah, yeah,
cinematic,
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a
Yeah, maybe we should
cinematic guy.
we should divide it down to what's your favorite band on this what's it called?
Yeah. Like if I said, hey, if you were doing a show, what would you play? What would be the first song you play?
yeah, what would
Right.
it what would it what
So
song would
if,
it be?
if I was doing a Christian event, because I was a worship leader, the first song I think I would play is probably, man, that's a tough one too. But I would say,
You came up with that with yourself, so come
I
on.
know. I think I would play God of Revival right now.
Okay.
It's a good one.
Hmm. What's your
Yeah, because I
favorite
mean, go ahead.
what's your favorite film or series?
I would say my favorite movie series right now would just be, which is out of the blue, which probably would be John Wick. I just like action.
Oh yeah.
And I like the fact that they just give it to you the whole time, and it's
Yep.
just it's just crazy, and the boogeyman, and it's all about revenge. But then he doesn't really care that he's getting revenge. There just needs to be change. Somebody needs to, you know what I mean? Like the whole thing. I just love the whole deal. And then they try to get him. He's kind of like, I'm done, by chapter 2 or 3. But they're like, well, you cause problems in our area, so we got to get you. Then they're after him, and it's like, it's a that's it was one of my favorite movie series. One of my favorite movies of all time was always Braveheart. It was just always,
Oh, Mel Gibson.
it's just a yeah, it's just a good one. Um, I would say that's probably one of the ones that I'll watch, all the time.
Hmm.
And actually, Batman Dark Knight, I would say it would be a tie between those two. So if
Okay,
I, if, if
cool.
I had one movie to watch for the rest of my life, it would be The Dark Knight, probably with Heath Ledger and Christian Bale, because I could just watch, because it was such a good. It's a long movie, and it's like that was the best portrayal of Joker I think ever, and I don't know if it'll be matched. It was pretty good.
Hmm. You know what I like
Yeah.
about John Wick, which you mentioned. I like it that they do actually do real stuff with the guns. That makes
Yes.
when you're shooting yourself, you know that you have a magazine like eight rounds and stuff like that. And some movies they keep on doing the stuff, and he just points out, okay, I wanna make a movie, but it should be realistic. I love that about that movie.
And I think people should watch his training on YouTube when he
Yeah,
went and trained. Like he trained, and
he
that's
was
why I
a
think I like it
badass.
because it's stuff that when you watch him do it in his normal street clothes, practicing for the movie, it makes the movie that much better. And
Yep,
you know what I mean? It's
I
like
agree.
that's why, yeah, it's that, and that's why it's one of my, it's low key one of the better series I think that has ever really been. And action wise, I mean, you can't. I mean, if you watch all four movies, I want to say you're almost at 11 or 12 hours of pure action.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
there's
just
no way
shooting
to
in
sit down and
cars
to
and
grab a beer or something like
no,
that. It's just like,
no,
whoa, you missed the scene,
it's
man.
yeah. It's like it's crazy, man, and it's all underworld stuff and these cliques and clubs and elite
Hmm,
societies and hitmen and you know, I mean, it's got a little bit of everything. So it's one of my favorite ones to watch. I think right now
okay. Favorite book?
it's the Bible, no doubt. No doubt. And I've read books and I've read a lot of books, and those are a lot of a lot of accounts, wisdom, understandings, and opinions where I feel the Bible is life, it's truth, it's God speaking to me through men, through God, through what men heard from God, or and how I've heard, like you've heard, like you said, praying and just being open. So I feel like ultimately and some people will say, well, it's 66 books, it's not really a book, you know, but it's like to me that's probably I would say definitely um hands up. It's been, if no matter what stage you're in life, sick, healthy, young, old, I read it when I was young, I read it now as I'm older, I read it when I was sick, when I'm feeling good, feeling bad. There's just understanding and wisdom for every situation, and it's
Hmm,
actually as I get older and under more understanding, it even unlocks more and proves to be even more true. So
hmm.
definitely say the Bible.
Amen to that. What's your favorite beverage, booze, or drink?
I would say right now, my favorite beverage is just coffee. I'm a coffeeaholic. I don't drink. I haven't drank in 20 plus years. I stopped. And then if I'm, like I said, I'm coffee is my go-to drink beverage. And then, um, yeah, that's it. It's coffee.
Okay. What's your favorite food?
Um, you got, man, it's like you got some good questions, man. Because you don't think about these things, you don't think about them, but then it's like, okay, I think my favorite food is it it's chicken, because I
Hmm.
just eat a lot of chicken. I don't even know if it's my favorite. I just eat a lot. To be honest, okay, my favorite food is a butterflied, grass-fed, grass-finished filet mignon. So a nice, 8-ounce steak that's butterflied open, is cut in butterflied open, medium, probably medium well, maybe
Hmm.
even medium rare. I used to not eat rare meat until I learned rare meat is good, better for your belly.
Hmm.
So I used to eat a lot of overcooked meat, thinking it was better, but cooking out all the parasites, which obviously you want to do that. But I found out tender meat is actually a lot uh, more nutritious, meaning you don't burn out all the nutrition of it. And
Hmm.
then grass fed, grass finished is real tender. So I would say my favorite is a steak. I just can't afford it. What I eat the most is chicken.
What kind of clothes do you wear the most, or what is the favorite?
So I actually liked Lululemon. I think that's my favorite because they actually have they feel very comfortable. They're extreme, like their shirts. And now I hear they're really toxic. That's the problem.
Oh, really? I thought
Yeah,
wool
yeah,
and linen would be very good for grounding and stuff like that.
yeah. The Bible says not to wear. Actually, George Hobbes just talked about this, and I forgot what verse it was on the fly, but look it up in the Bible. It says not to wear uh, wool and linen because I believe wool is good for you, but linen cancels it out.
Yeah, when you wear it together, it cancels it
Yes.
out. Yeah, but when you only wear linen or only
You know
wool,
what? Maybe it's not. Yeah, it's that, and then, but I think it's something else. The polyester, I think,
oh yeah.
is what they're talking about. It leaches onto you though, and I think that's what Lululemon has a lot of.
Ah, okay, yeah, okay. Well, Lumolin is then a synthetic.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
more of a
okay.
synthetic clothing,
Ah,
but it's
okay,
really nice though.
okay,
It
yeah,
looks good and it's really comfortable.
okay. Um, so we got to the last three questions, Adrian. What favorite holiday destination?
Um, I mean, I'm always a Hawaii guy. I guess my nature. My favorite, if I'm going on vacation holiday, it would probably be to Hawaii, only because I don't have to go through customs. You can swim the water with no problem. I mean, usually, Oahu, you don't never really have a problem, and then it's an island, so you get a lot of good, nice islander folks, and it's not. I mean, nowadays it's way more commercialized. I think the last 10 years or whatever, but
Mhm.
it's always a good spot to go to.
Okay. What's your favorite quote?
Um, Cooler heads prevail. I think that's something that I've always, as a quote, I just like that. I don't know who it's from. I don't even know if it's. I know that I had a friend of mine, and every time we had a problem, um, the bosses that were yelling and going crazy always made it worse. And when we just relaxed, me and my buddy, we just laugh about the fire drill, and then an hour later it goes away, or you figure it out, and you solve the problem. And it's just cooler instead of just looking at everything as an emergency and as death and fire.
Mhm.
Just look at it as an opportunity, and cooler heads prevail,
Yeah,
and it always has. So I like that
cool.
one.
Well, that's reveal. what's
Yeah.
your what's your life motto?
um Love God and love your neighbor. If you do that, that's the only test you can pass with just two answers. And
Mm,
two answers to that: love God, check; love your neighbor, and it says you have fulfilled all the law.
wow.
And that's from Jesus Christ.
Amen to that.
Yeah, so you can't beat that one.
Wow. Well, Aaron, again, thank you very much for hopping on my podcast, for your time and your energy. We discussed some great things. I'll give you the last word after I will finish up with my audience. I hope you all enjoyed. And like said, if I wish you everyone a great day, a great evening, or a great morning wherever you are on this beautiful plain planet.
All right. No, that's good. Now, my last word is thank you for having me on. Lord bless Rob, Lord, give him strength, give him peace. Let him have a wonderful day today. And let him keep fighting the good fight of faith, helping others, speaking his heart, speaking his mind. Bless him in all that he does in his journey. And let him continue to grow closer to you in your word. And I just thank you, Father. And I thank you guys, everyone who's stuck around to the end. I know it's been a long one, but with me and Mr. Rob here, we're able to have fun and create a friendship and talk like two fellas that's known each other for a long time, and that's always a good thing. And we're just guys looking for the truth, looking for to encourage another human being, another person, another individual, and through that encouragement, let that encourage others. And we just want to say thank you, everybody, that you're on the journey with us, right?
Amen to that. Thank you. my life with the devil on my heels. He wasn't always right, and he can't fulfill my dreams. I've been running for all my life with the devil on my heels. He wasn't always right and couldn't fulfill my dreams. He's a pain in the ass, black as night. God showed me the light and holding me tight. I've been running for all my life with the devil on my heels. He wasn't always right and doesn't fulfill my dreams. God showed me the light. Please hold me tight. I've been running for all my life with the devil on my heels. He wasn't always right and couldn't fulfill my dreams. I've been running for all my life with the devil on my heels. He wasn't always right and couldn't fulfill my dreams. He's a pain in the ass, black as night. God, show me the light. He's a pain